Hey, cats who like to knock over people's webcams, welcome back to Miku's Crackhouse. This is episode 125. I'm your host, as always.
Stop. Get out of there.
Sam Kigma. And the person on the other end who's trying to fix his webcam, it's Myles J.
I set that up. Yeah, my cat is in the room. She's here.
She wouldn't leave earlier.
No, she wouldn't, and she's not gonna leave now. So I'm just gonna let whatever happens happen with this cat.
Yeah, and surely it will not be distracting or a problem for anyone.
I'm not even gonna address whatever alterations this cat makes to this room. I'm not even gonna address them. I'm just gonna let it happen, and throughout the show, I'll let the camera get worse and worse.
Yeah, but
I'd like to at the very I'm not even gonna if the camera's just tilted, that's how it's gonna be the rest of the episode.
If we get a Dutch angle, it is how it is.
Yeah, exactly. You know, hey, we'll be a nice ball podcast for a little bit, or Battlefield Earth podcast.
Yeah, but Myles, I finished 60 Days In.
Okay.
Not only did I finish 60 Days In Season 1, I also finished 60 Days In Season 2. Because when you're fucking unemployed and looking for a job, you have a lot of fucking time to kill on fucking Labor Day weekend. So that's what I did. I basically watched all of Season 2 in like 2 days. And the rest of Season 1, like, basically after we finished last week's episode. So, because last week, I only watched the first 5 episodes of...
Don't let it distract you.
I only watched the first 5 episodes of it last week, of 60 Days In, and had a lot to say about it. And I still have a lot to say about it. But I wanted to continue the theme of what I was doing last week with the character rankings. First, by finishing off my character rankings for the Season 1 cast, and then telling you my thoughts and opinions on Season 2. Because Season 2 is revealed at the end of Season 1 by the sheriff, by Sheriff Noel, who says that the Phase 2 of the program started, like, immediately after they all started to pull out. The 7 contestants, they sent in 8 more people, and that's Season 2. And Season 1 and Season 2 are like the same fucking show. Like, they follow very same storylines, like verbatim. Oh my fucking god.
Just ignore it. She's not in the room.
God.
She's not in the room.
Oh my fucking god. Fucking jump scare. Holy shit. Fucking,
did that actually get
that?
Did that actually scare you?
It's like that car video. Remember that car video?
Oh yeah, with the screamer at the end.
Like,
yeah.
That's a seminal video for me. Seminal piece of content.
Oh yeah, no, I think I became a darker person after discovering that video. Like, that was the moment where I realized, like, there were people out in the world who just want to hurt you.
Yeah. Like a certain someone in this Riverside
Season.
call right now.
Sorry. I thought that was a transition back into 60 Days In.
Yeah, well, so I'm pretty sure I said that Jeff got punched and immediately, like, left the show. Like, he's in the jail for like 4 days. He gets hit a bunch and then leaves. So let's go over what happens to the rest of the 6 other contestants. So 5 of the 7 end up making it. After Robert's, my favorite characters, 30 days in solitary confinement, Myles, Robert is like, gets violently ill. And he thinks he's initially saying it's like constipation or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I gotta go to the hospital. And then Captain Maples, who's like one of 2 people who like know about the program, he's like, if he has to go to the hospital, he's done. He's pulling out. And he's like, oh, I really don't want to pull out, but I really gotta go to the hospital. So then he goes to the hospital, and then they talk to him the next day, and he's like perfectly fine. And then they're like, so what was the issue at the hospital? And they're like, oh yeah, it was nothing wrong with me. It was undiagnosed. And basically, they're just trying to get him to admit in the post 60 day, or post, in his case, like 35 days interview, to see what they can do to improve the jail. He was only there for like 4 days and then spent 30 days in solitary confinement. And they're just like so mad. And he is like, yeah, I had no problems. I had no problems in the jail. I wasn't harassed. I was perfectly safe. I had no issues with those guys. It was a piece of cake. No problem. I'd do it again. And it's not until, because the first season and the second season are 12 episodes. And then the 13th episode is like a Real Housewives recap with an ABC interviewer style where they talk about the program and everyone's experiences. And they interview about key moments and shit from the season.
Right.
And it's not till the postseason interview where Sheriff Noel and Captain Maples really fucking let Robert have it for just how much of everyone's time and resources he fucking wasted. And Robert refuses to own up to it at all. Basically, Robert's a guy who just wanted to be on TV. And this was his way to do it. And he goes to jail and he gets way in over his head and he does not want to go back. Cause Myles, he is like, I have no problem going to C Block. I got no problem them taking me to general population. No issue with it. And then Sheriff Noel reads a fucking letter that Robert wrote him in solitary confinement requesting that the rest of his 60 days spent in solitary confinement and to not be sent to general population. He fucking just dead ass sent him a letter requesting that. So he's like, dude, you clearly do not want to fucking go back to this shit. Like, so, Robert only on the show for like, in totality, maybe like 15 to 20 minutes of the show's runtime in the actual jail. But God, is it good content? Is it like the best shit on the show? Zach remains the real number one best in crewmate because he actually gets involved in uncovered crime and corruption and drugs.
This is a weighted tier list. Robert would be higher if his weighting was more favorable, but he was not in the jail. He was not in Gen Pop long enough.
Yeah, yeah, and honestly, the list really doesn't change from what we talked about last week. Tammy after Zach, because Tammy gets so deep in the fucking drama, it's awesome. Then after her is Barbara for her transformation from like really meek twig housewife to like almost honestly by the end of the season actually being a pod boss in her like final days. Really like actually taking over F-Pod is pretty insane. And pretty cool. Then after is probably Miriam, who is just a little less interesting than Barbara. She just does less. Then same thing with Isaiah. Isaiah just doesn't do a whole lot in the season. And then finally Jeff would be like a top 3 character if he actually lasted like more than an episode. Because he's literally the last to be in. Oh my God.
He's not here. Ignore it.
He's the last person to enter and the first person to leave, and it's very funny. But season 1 is good, but it's also revealed at the end of season 1 when they show the trailer for season 2 that Zach, best character, season 1's wife, Ashley, is doing the program.
Oh, we got the blood
2.
versus water. We got blood versus water in here.
So we get a season 2 follow-up. And let me just say, Myles, so as I mentioned earlier, season 2 is filmed immediately following season 1. Season 1 is not aired yet. So they are still under the guise of filming the documentary about first-time inmates at the Clark County correctional facility. So, in season 2, as I mentioned earlier, we get 8 characters. I'll go through them, in my opinion, based on how I think, how interesting they are as crewmates on the cast to watch.
Right.
Now,
once upon a cell block.
Yes. Now, as I was messaging Myles, because let me just say, I was basically like live tweeting my thoughts to this show to Myles.
Yeah,
I was really annoying on Discord.
I was busy that day, and I can't remember what I was doing. it might have been editing work, but like I truly can't remember. I just remember you were messaging me and I could not respond, so I haven't actually read any of these. Like, so what you're about to tell me is brand new info. It's as new content to me as it is to the audience.
Yeah, but one thing I did mention that we did have a conversation about is that I think season 2. And this was at like midnight,
by the way. Like, this was when the day was done and I could finally respond.
I think season 2's cast of characters is weaker than season 1, but these storylines in plot lines of season 2 are better and more interesting and more dynamic than what happens in season 1. Where like season 1 kind of devolves to the point where like the last like 2 or 3 episodes of season 1 are just kind of like devolve into just what a bullshit drama. And for Zach, where Zach faces the like top 10 craziest moments of season 1, Zach is involved in 8 of the 10 probably. So he just gets the short end of the stick in that department, but he handles it like a champ, which is why he's the fucking best character. And what I like about season 2's cast of characters is our 8 contestants share a lot of parallels, a lot of JoJo style cinematic parallels to our season 1 cast. So we'll go through it. So ranked number 8 in the season 1 cast is Chris. Chris doesn't even make it out of classification. He enters the prison, or he enters the jail, and immediately gets really vehemently sick and starts like throwing up for like 8+ hours. He can't keep any food down. He can't do it. They end up giving him, and I'll just say this. I'll also try to point out differences about season 1 to season 2. Season 2 difference, they try way harder to get people to stay in times of like crisis. Because like in season 1, there's a moment where it looks like Barbara's gonna pull out, and I'm like, holy shit, she's gonna pull out. But she did the single, and she's like, I just needed a minute to cool off. Like I was getting really fucking agitated, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. And I just needed a minute. I'm gonna go back in there, but like fuck, but if she was like, I wanted to go, they would have just let her go or whatever. Where, as we'll see in this season, they try to keep people. So with Chris, they're like, we're gonna send him on medical furlough, and then just secretly send him to a hotel where he can spend the night, see if he can stave it off, and then if he wants to come back, he can come back and go from there. And he decides to just not go back. He just doesn't think it's good for him. So Chris is a non-character. So we really have 7 characters, just like last season. Because there's like nothing interesting with Chris other than 2 of the other people involved. Because again, none of the crewmates know the other crewmates are involved in the program, except for people they trained with who are going to be in other cell blocks. So they're not going to know them. Both 2 of the male contestants think that Chris is relapsing on heroin in the jail, which is why he's puking, because he looks fucked up. He looks fucked in the jail. I felt really bad for him. Number 7 after that is Quentin. Now Quentin is a bit similar to Tammy in the fact that both of them are police officers of 20+ years. He was a police officer for 20 years and then became a bounty hunter for like 10 years. So he's been in law enforcement for a long time. And Quentin is a really big, muscular black dude. And because of that, when he enters the jail, nobody really fucks with him. But because he's a cop, he knows
what is
that...
What is playing on... Oh, is it...
Ignore it, Myles! It's not there! It's not there!
It's different when an episode of Best of the Worst starts playing on the computer because she accidentally hit the play button. That is different. We can't be having Mike and Jay and Rich Evans and Tim Higgins.
Your cat keeps trying to play the Max Landis episodes of Best of the Worst. Oh yeah,
no, we'll get canceled if we get those Max Landis episodes in there. Yeah, no, that was
sabotage.
Because Julian's gonna want to know. It was Halloween 2022. That was the episode.
So fucking So because of Quentin's stature, no one really fucks with him, but also because of his background as a police officer, he understands that if his cover gets blown, it's going to be like way worse for him. So he keeps a safe distance for everyone, and everyone keeps a safe distance from him. Because of that,
I'm just going to check my notes now and then close this fucking thing. Okay, I remember what I'm talking about. Great. Continue.
Because of that, interesting things happen around him, but interesting things don't really happen, like, to him, and he doesn't really do interesting things. So he's ranked 7. Ranked 6 is my boy, Brian.
It's surprising that he's your boy when he's so low. How does that happen?
Well, when you DNF, do not finish on day 4, you have very limited content.
Right.
Brian is like why you want the show to exist, because Brian is like the most normal looking white dude out of all these guys. Like, he's just the most average looking Joe Schmo type of character. Just a schlubby guy in his 30s with glasses who, could not, would not do anything remotely criminal, at all. It just like gets thrown in the pod and just gets immediately harassed by everyone there. And the pod boss Daffron of D Block, who is a character in season 1, by the way, who is an inmate character in season 1 because he's there for attempted murder. So he kind of controls the D Block. And Daffron's crazy in this season. We'll get to some shit he's involved in later. But yeah, basically him and a bunch of other inmates are constantly harassing Brian. And then on like his 4th day in the program, 2nd day in D Block, Daffron calls him a bitch, and Brian is just like, fuck. They said if you get called a bitch, you gotta like do something about it, or like something bad's gonna happen to you. But like, he's just like, fuck this. He's just like, fuck this shit. I'm done. This is dumb. So he puts on the distress signal. The producers pull him out of there. They say, hey, Brian, look, we can transfer you to C Block if you want to stay. And he's just like, I think I'm good. Daffron is fucking crazy. I have no idea how much power he has outside of D Block. I'm not going to mess with it. I'm going home. Fuck this.
The wisest possible decision. That's a man who doesn't care about being on TV.
But what I like about Brian, and this is the thing about Chris. So let's flash forward to the season 2 post-season interview with them, with all 8 of them. Chris and Brian are like the exact opposite of like Jeff and Robert, because Robert's in complete denial. He's on another plane of reality. He's like using Blink in fucking Baldur's Gate 3 to shift dimensions every other turn by rolling a 10 or higher. Like, that's the kind of wizardry fucking Robert's on. And Jeff refuses to take any responsibility for why he was targeted in the jail. And because he was attacked by a drug addict who was was giving his meds to another guy in the prison, or excuse me, in the jail. And because of that, he was going crazy, and the TV was telling Ricky, that the crazy guy, that Jeff was a pedophile and needed to be eliminated.
Wow.
So he just got like fucking sucker punched like twice, and Jeff was like, what the fuck? And then he pulls out immediately, and he's like, yo, this is like, yeah, if he didn't attack me, like I would have stayed or whatever, would have been fine, whatever. But like, he was giving away all his commissary and shit, so he was looking really weak to the other inmates. and he just wouldn't really take accountability for that. And Jeff was awesome because he wanted to be a corrections officer. So the fact that like he like stayed for like 4 days and could not handle it and is still like, yeah, like I definitely still want to do this stuff. And Zach the Marine was like, I would not trust you to have my back, man. I gotta be honest with you, dude. And I'm like, this is awesome. The postseason interview for season 1 is crazy. Cause they fucking, some of them start fighting at each other over some shit that happens. Maybe I'll get back to that later, but I don't want to talk about it. I'm into season 2 right now. But Brian, when he's talking the postseason interview, like the ABC interviewer is like, yeah, Brian, like, do you think there was anything that you could have done differently to like fit in? And he's like, honestly, you know, it's not really what I did, more like what I didn't do. Like, you know, I kind of sat out in the open and made myself a target right away. And they clearly knew I was just not their type, not the criminal or convict type. And they could tell that immediately. And I couldn't really hack it. So like Brian, like I give him credit because he fucking he took accountability. He's like, yeah, like this is what happened. And this is how it could have went differently. And then Chris, when he's talking, he's just like, yeah, you know, like, honestly, like, you know, I felt really bad these last like few months since this program. He's like, I feel terrible. I feel like I've completely wasted your guys' time. By the way, speaking directly to Sheriff Noel and Captain Maples, the complete opposite situation of Robert. And they are so kind to Chris. They are so kind to him in the postseason interview, basically talking like, no, you actually, I think showed a lot of people, you know, at home, the reality of what it's like to be in this situation and how, you know, nerves just take over and how, you know, some people just can't fucking handle it and to fucking stay out of trouble. And they're very gracious and nice towards him. And everyone in the cast is too. The season 2 cast, they have a Where Are They Now follow-up episode, which season 1 did not. I think they follow up on the season 1 cast in seasons like 3 or 4 or whatever in like clips at the end of episodes. But season 2, they got a full ass episode after the fact. And that's interesting. We'll get to that later down the line. But after Brian, who did not finish, but also, by the way, let's just say that Brian's 4-day stint in jail, literally, in most notoriously his like 1.5 days in D Block, is more interesting than Quentin's entire 60-day stay.
Wow. Okay. Poor Quentin, dude.
That's the problem with the characters. So then we get to characters 4 and 5, who I can honestly flip back and forth between. I'm going to say no. I have number 5 is, you know, I'll just keep the list as is. Number 5 is Mona Lisa. So yeah, her name is just straight up Mona Lisa. Very funny. She's like this like 40 something, like late 30s, 40 something, like Latina chick. And she is, it's over.
Nah, no, she didn't want to leave.
No.
Yeah, but
just a tease for me, I guess.
She just wanted to leave the desk, which is fine.
But Mona Lisa wants to get involved in the program because her daughter is incarcerated and is serving a 10-year prison sentence.
So it's sort of like What's-His-Face, whose brothers were incarcerated.
Yeah, Isaiah in season 1. And Chris, by the way, Chris's brother was incarcerated he went to prison for 4 months because he's like he picked up a friend of his or whatever, and his friend like just like robbed something, so he got picked up as the wheelman, and he had to serve 4 months, and it like fucked up his whole family. So he wanted to kind of do the program and see what his brother was like. And to his credit, they go over in the post where they now interview that Chris's brother are talking more, so that's good, at least for them. But Mona Lisa wants to do the same thing with her daughter because it really, like, you know, obviously ruined their relationship or whatever. And the season in her story in the F Block is mainly about her kind of forming relationships with some like drug addicts and some troubled younger people in the F block, and kind of seeing like what kind of like relate to her daughter and what she's going through. And she's kind of an interesting character, and she gets involved in a little bit of drama, but it's not that she's not that interesting. But she's pretty cool, and she's pretty tough, and she stands her ground. She's definitely the toughest of the three ladies this season. And she succeeds. She makes it the full 60 days. Everyone else from here on out makes it the full 60 days.
Good for them.
Yeah, it's tough, dude. It's
I can
brutal.
imagine.
I wouldn't fucking do this shit.
Well, it's funny to think about, like, because when I think about Survivor versus this show, like, Survivor is like, when people are talking about like the strategies of getting through prison, it's not a game. Like, Survivor prison or Survivor strategy is gameplay. It's social gameplay. I mean, it is literally Amogus, or, you know, something akin to Amogus, where it's a social. It's a Jackbox game with survival. And to be fair, in 60 Days In is also a social game, but it is just a social game. The stakes are higher because no one else is playing the game but you.
That's the thing is. That's the thing, Myles. Everyone is playing the game. The difference is that
one person realizes it's a game.
No. It's the people who are there at the jail are stuck there. The contestants, the crewmates, can pull out at any time.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, there's the game element of, like, everyone in prison is playing the game all the time, constantly.
Because it is a social game to keep yourself out of trouble.
You ever heard of the card game Blueberries?
No.
Blueberries is a card game in which only one person is allowed to know the rules of the game. And as you play the game, you have to slowly figure out the rules of the game based on, like, what everyone else does wrong. And so, for example, like, if someone, you know, okay, it's a card game, right? It's a literal game where you play with a suit of cards, you know, deck of cards. So it's like, okay, well, you played you played 8, right? So it's similar to like one of those games where you kind of stack cards, you know, like going in order, like not a Go Fish, but something akin to that, where you lay down a card, right, based on what's in your hand.
Uno?
Yeah, basically. But it's not in any particular order. I don't remember how exactly the order of the cards work, but you basically play your hand based on what rules you know. And I think that there is some amount of regulation, like you have to play, you know, certain cards of the same suit or of the, you know, the next highest number, but you also have to do something after playing the card. So, like, one could be like, okay, you played 8, and then the person who knows the rules would just say, you didn't bow to the king, and then you just have to take another card.
Oh, there's like a drinking game that's kind of like this that we used to play back in college, where all the numbers rhymed with shit, and every time you'd pull a card, it would relate to a different quick drinking game. Yeah. I guess this is the sober version of that. I'm assuming,
kind of, but it was a case of, like, only one person knew the rules, and you had to figure out the rules. And in the case
that sounds fucking annoying. That sounds fucking annoying.
It is fun if you're playing with people who, like, aren't very smart, and you are the only smart person there who can figure out the rules. Like, that's really fun because you seem like a fucking superhero. But yeah, like, if you're playing with people who just want to play a game and who aren't very smart and who aren't catching on and who are getting frustrated, it's really not fun. But, like, with 60 Days In, it's that, except 999 people know the rules and you don't.
Yeah, and it's just watching them learn the rules is very interesting and very fascinating and good TV, and watching them end up just falling into the drama of fucking, like, just falling into the drama of jail and the just depressing nature and violent nature of it. And
it's like transferring high schools.
Yeah, all these people become so quick-tempered and just, like, I feel bad for them. Like, Mona Lisa makes a great comment where she's like, in one of her confessionals where she's like, y'all gotta give me therapy after this. Like, I'm gonna need therapy after this. After Mona Lisa, number 4, best character, Sherry. Now, Sherry was a correctional officer for a long time, but she had a couple kids. She's had 3 kids. She's been a mom for like 7 years, I think. It's like 8 years. I think it's like 8, 6, and 4, I think, are her kids. And she wants to get back into corrections, off doing that kind of work, CO work. She liked it doing it in the past. She wants to get back to it, and she thinks doing 60 days in would be a good experience. She also finished out the program. It was much tougher for her. She kind of caught the wrath of this one crazy chick named Mackenzie, who gets pulled from the pod very quickly after her arriving due to her freaking out at a guard, completely unrelated. So Sherry kind of lucks out there. But it's mostly just her just like struggling, just trying to away from her kids and all that stuff. But also she gets into it sometimes with the women in F pod, because all the pods, C, D, and F, the pods we followed from season 1, we still follow in season 2. They're all objectively worse. Season 3 is season C pods. Season 2 pod, way violenter. D pod, way more violenter than it was in season 1. Season 1 was pretty violent. Season 1 F pod, not super violent, much more violent, super drug ridden. And Sherry is trying to figure out where the drugs are coming from, which she does figure out. So she puts her
dream of getting drugs off the street.
To get drugs out of the prison, out of the jail,
and to do
which
so,
she does manage to
become a gang prisoner,
a crewmate, a
starmate. Yeah, all the correctional facility officers or narcs or whatever, they are star mates, not crewmates.
So Sherry, pretty fun. She's got some moments. There's a close call where she re-encounters Mackenzie and she thinks that she's gonna fucking die, and it's pretty intense and it's awesome. But that because right when she gets into the jail, Mackenzie accuses her of having like drugs on her and smuggling drugs, and then the pod boss at the time like brings in Mackenzie and Sherry to speak with them, and then the pod boss and her crew just start beating the shit out of Mackenzie. They just start beating the shit out of her, and then afterwards they go to Sherry and they're like, "That is not fucking right of her to be fucking telling lies. Like, that's fucking not okay. Be doing that shit." And Sherry's like, yeah, and I was accepted, and I was okay. And I was like, oh man, this is awesome. This is great. Number 3 best character, our bronze medalist, is Dion. Now, Dion is our Isaiah parallel this season. Both Isaiah and Dion are like younger black guys who grew up in more scarier gang controlled environments. So they had some street smarts going in, but where Isaiah was more on the timid side and much more like, I'm gonna just chill and do my 60 days and kind of stay out of trouble, very much played it like Quentin did this season. Dion didn't give a fuck. Dion didn't give a fuck. He challenges the pod boss for the TV remote. He enters the shower when the people in the pod or people in the cell weren't letting anyone use the shower. He just fucking went in there and used it. He didn't give a shit. He's like, no one's gonna fuck with me. He's like, no one's gonna fuck with me. He's like, I know these fucking guys. He's like, I'm not gonna be fucking treated like this. Shit's fucking ridiculous. And he fucking talks back to the fucking inmates that give him shit and stuff. So he's fucking awesome to watch. When you first start the season, you think you're in for another Isaiah, but you get the Chad Isaiah. You get the virgin Isaiah and the Chad Dion. Yeah. Chad Dion, he's awesome. He's great, and you really think he's gonna go crazy on someone by the end of these 60 days, but he doesn't, and he completes his 60 days. Number 2 is Ashley, who is Zach's wife from season 1. And she's really great to watch because she's been sober and off of hard drugs and narcotics for 4 years. And here she goes to F-Pod, where it is the most drug-riddled it has ever been, and she is constantly surrounded by this shit. And you're thinking, oh God, I really hope Ashley doesn't break and Ashley doesn't crack, because, you know, she's got like a 4-month-old at home, like, you know, and she's constantly talking about that. And her mom went to jail, in prison, and died in prison for drugs and shit. And she doesn't want to become like her mom. And she has a very emotional arc over season 2. Great character to watch. But what's awesome, what really puts her to the silver medal, Myles, is that when she calls home, because only only like 1 or 2 family members are allowed to know about you being in the program, to keep secrecy to a minimum. So the only person that she knows and she can really call and rely on is Zach. And Zach is such a dick to her on the phone. It is like he just does not give a fuck about her problems. He's trying to give her like, and he says in the post-season interview, he's trying to give her like tough love on the phone, but he comes across as very harsh. And it's like, so it just like the way they edit him to be such an asshole, which is so funny considering how he really is like the hero of season 1. And they make him come out to be such like a domestic dickhead. Because it's just, they have so many calls and so many fights and stuff on the phone. And they talk about separating in the postseason interview, but in the follow-up, where are they now, they're still together. And it's funny, in the follow-up, where are they now, is they literally come and see her. She says 2 lines to them, and she's like, Ashley declined to be filmed any further to spend time with her family. And I'm like, yeah, dude, she's so done with this person shit. She does not want to be reminded of this at all. But then, Myles, we have the gold medalist, number 1, Ryan. And lo and behold, Ryan is our Zach parallel. So we have, just to be clear here, a Jeff parallel with Brian, an Isaiah parallel with Dion. No Miriam parallel, really. Kinda like Sherry, but Sherry's more like Tammy. No Barbara, really, either. Nothing quite like Barbara. Actually, Ashley's kind of like Barbara, though Ashley's had more run-ins with the law, so that it's a little weaker there. Zach, and like Ryan. And no Robert, unfortunately, this season. That season would have been better if they had a Robert. If we could replace Chris with a Robert, that would have been awesome. That just would have made the season like 10 times better. But Ryan is like Zach. When the season starts, Myles, you think Ryan is going to be who's an army medic. So he's got some military training and stuff, some boot camp training. And he talks he's got a very like Southern, like Texan accent to him, and he speaks very sophisticatedly at the start of the show. And by the end of the season, it's all gone. And at the start, you think he's going to be like Zach, but he's going to fail at every turn. But no, dude, he goes even further. In fact, he becomes really good friends with this inmate named Garza, who isn't quite the pod boss of D-Pod, but is pretty high up there in influence over the pod. And he, in fact, gets so close to him that Captain Maples pulls him out of D-Pod and transfers to C-Pod. And Ryan's so pissed about it. He's like, what the fuck, man? Like, he's like, I'm trying to get information. I'm trying to figure out, you know, what's going on here, how these inmates work and feel and operate. Like, he thinks he's deep undercover. It's so awesome. Like, he thinks he's really on a real deep mission here. Like, same with Zach, like that, and same with Tammy, honestly. Like, those 3 thought they're like, I got to accomplish something here. Like, I'm not just here to, like, do time. Like, Quentin was there to do time. and just report about the experience. They were there to uncover shit. And that's what Ryan does. He uncovers a boatload of shit. And then when he gets transferred to C-Pod, you think that that it's going to get kind of boring for him because he's going to have to start over, and he's kind of upset at the program for kind of fucking him. And no, bro, he starts a commissary store. He starts trading, which they explicitly said in episode 1 before they all enter the jail. Do not get involved in trading. But Ryan's like, I had a unique storefront. This is how he would talk. He's like, I had a unique store. He's like, I did equal trades only. I did not get involved in future markets. If I sold you something for $1.50, you would give me something for $1.50 in return. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I gotta be honest, based on watching him on the show, Sheriff Noel and Captain Maples chastise him and chide him for trading. They're like, dude, that was super dangerous and you could have got fucked. I think he was trading pretty smartly because, with the exception of one guy, Ricky from season 1, who punched Jeff at the end of Ryan's stay at the end of his 60 days, literally in his final 48 hours, he catches the ire of Ricky, and it's the same shit, dude. The TV's telling him that Ryan's fucking crazy and that Ryan needs to be taken out. But Ryan's able to kind of like avoid him and just keep his distance from him long enough to be pulled out for his, just to get called for bed and baggage and get sent home. And it's it's fucking awesome. His whole arc is just fucking great to watch. Especially too, because in the season 1 interview, both Zach and Isaiah admit to trading, and Captain Maples and Sheriff Noel are like, yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do or whatever, because they just made trades here and there, and they made smart trades, and it was what it was. It's just it's the fucking way of life in there, man. It's how you gotta fucking make it. But yeah, Ryan's also a real fucking G. Not only does he not snitch on a couple of core inmates for some crazy shit, like Garza and a couple guys, he also, when Garza gets in a fight, he breaks his knuckle, and his knuckle gets to place to like right here. And because he was an army medic, he's able to just fucking fix it. Just like right there in the cell. And I'm like, that was fucking badass. And then later on, he sees an inmate who is about to fucking get killed, basically, because he basically he got too much, he borrowed too much shit and he can't pay it back. He's like they had a vocab word for it, I forgot it, but it's basically a destitute inmate where they have no commissary money coming in, and because it's jail, you can't earn any money, so you're just stuck there. So he had no way to pay his shit back. So Ryan, because it was towards the tail end of his stay, he ended up just giving him like enough to clear his debts or whatever. Which was a weak move, but because he was pulling out, he's like, I don't fucking give a shit. Yeah. He's like, if people are gonna fuck with me for 3 days, I could give 2 fucks. This is the right thing to do. Because Ryan is a fucking real one. I really like Ryan. Ryan makes the season, honestly.
He's literally a protagonist.
Yes, he is. Same with Zach. Same with Zach in season 1.
He's an actual isekai light novel protagonist where when he gets isekai'd, he uses his previous life's experience to survive and to get through.
And he does it. And I really think he thrives. Of all the 15 crewmates, he is the person who most becomes an inmate. Him, Barbara, and Dion and Tammy are the 4 most institutionalized people on the show. They're the people who I think got turned into who had exhibited inmate qualities the most. Where like with Ryan, because you feel bad for Ryan in the postseason, not the postseason interview, but the Where Are They Now? He has a heart-to-heart with Quentin. Where they're shooting guns, and basically Ryan's like, I really don't know what to do with my life, because Ryan wanted to be a cop. He wanted to be a CO or a cop or whatever, or ultimately you want to be a detective, but you got to be a police officer first. And he's like, bro, after jail, I don't want to do that. He's like, because he's like, I know the people in there, and a bunch of people I spoke to probably don't deserve to be in there. And he's like, I can't in good conscience be putting people away and shit. And I think he decides to get involved in law school or go to law school or something by the end. So good for him.
That's pretty based, yeah.
Yeah, he's sick. He's dope. But the two things I wanted to talk about, last two things about the season, I know I've been going the whole fucking time. I just love this show, Myles. Like, I cannot really recall, except for Riverdale, the last time I was this enthralled in a show where, like, every single episode, I was like, oh my God, I gotta know what fucking happens next. This is the best fucking TV ever.
Well, I want to point out, because what's really funny about it, too, is that, like, we come onto this show, and I wouldn't consider us, like, pretentious, per se, but I think that we know what we like, for sure, and we very much enforce our feelings about what we like, right? And it is very funny to think that, like, we've both kind of had instances where we were watching, like, some shit that people are, like, really about and think are, like, really keynote. Like, me with Succession and you with, like, Suits, where we were just like, yeah, I just don't care. I'd rather watch Survivor, you know, like.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I moved on from, oh my God, what did I move on from Succession? I watched, like, just a bunch of, like, I think it was that, and then I moved on to, like, Seinfeld. Like, just, like...
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, just, and to be fair, Seinfeld's a respectable and respected show, so it's not, like, complete shit, but, like, people would probably tell me, it's like, oh, man, you gotta watch Succession, bro. Such a masterpiece, bro. And I'm like, yeah, but did you see when Dreams kept his immunity idol even though he promised to trade the car to Yao Man? Like, I can't get that shit on Succession. I think that there is an appeal, especially to guys like us, about just the insanity of reality shows.
Yeah.
That in my golden years, my twilight years, I'm just now starting to like appreciate more than like writing, which is such a funny thing to say.
Yeah, like are you familiar with like Vanderpump Rules at all?
Yeah, I am. I was gonna bring this up ages ago, and maybe I even did. Stop me if I have. But like, my mom was watching an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians when she was like bedridden. She was sick, and I walked into the room when she was finishing the episode, and it had a cliffhanger. Like, Keeping Up with the Kardashians had a cliffhanger, and I in that moment I just had the most subtle like, okay, like it was like when Saitama is just like, okay, like to that one guy, the famous frame, where I was just like, you know what, at this point might as well, after watching as much Survivor as I have, like I get it with reality TV.
Yeah, it's like, because it's just like, because with Vanderpump, it's like the insanity of all this real world drama mixed with like the almost like a wrestling medium. This has been happening for 10 plus years. These people have all known each other for a decade's worth of time. It's all this pent up drama and everything just exploding at once. Like, it is interesting to watch unfold on a base level if you are captivated with it at a more base form. Now with Vanderpump, I'm not, but with 60 Days In, I am. With Survivor, you are. Like,
yeah, I don't just like any reality show, and like, there's a reason I can't really fuck with Big Brother, even though it's kind of the same show. Like, it really is the same show, but Big Brother doesn't have the stress of being on a fucking island, and it also doesn't have the like the challenges. So like, you basically, in the case of Big Brother, it's people who are just whispering at each other, like trying to not like reveal secrets, but like they're not doing enough. They're not doing enough for me. Whereas like Survivor, it's like these people have to be athletes. They have to be physically strong enough to survive on like barely any food. They have to like be Survivor fans enough to an extent to like understand that it's a social game and to have gameplay. Yeah. Like, and the thing about it is that like the first season, Richard Hatch was considered like a fucking villain because he was playing the game like a game. It would be like, it's like if you had like one friend who knew how to wave dash in Melee and who knew how to like L cancel in Melee, and you got mad at him for playing Melee with those like advanced skills, it's like you can't be like that. You don't have to want to play that guy, like, you know. But like, you can't be mad if you're like, yeah, I'm so good at Smash Bros, and then someone who's actually good at Smash Bros wipes the fucking floor with you. You just can't be mad about that, especially if you're one of these fucking. You know what? I'm gonna let you finish before I get onto this tangent that I'm about to get onto.
Sounds good. I'll make it quick. So the two last things I needed to say about season 2, the two craziest moments of season 2, is the kangaroo court, where Daffron, Pod Boss, who I mentioned, is the judge, and one of the people who I think he sold a bum e-cig, which is a great offense, and he was sentenced to 40 lashings. And he was lashed 40 times with more than 40 times with a towel, and you saw the marks when it was all said and done, and it was just a different skin color at that point. It was just fucking pure black on this like tan looking guy. And that shit was crazy. And then like after the second kangaroo court, the CERT team went in and took out Daffron and a bunch of core people involved because they're like, yeah, that can't happen. But that shit was fucking crazy because nothing like that happens in season 1. Like, nothing close to the level of violence that happened in season 1 is equivalent to what happened in the kangaroo court. It was fucking insane. And then the not the climax of the season, but the most intense moment of the season towards the end, around in the last week and a half of everyone's runtime. The jail floods. And and half the jail loses water. The entire jail loses water, and half the jail is flooded. So they have to move 300 inmates to like the rec area and classification and other pods, and it is fucking chaotic. And they won't give anyone any water, so all the inmates are super dehydrated and extremely stressed. And all of the crewmates believe they're like, a riot's about to happen. And there's a part where the A&E producers are interviewing people in the rec room, and guards come in and they pull them out because they're like, they're gonna take you guys hostage. They're like, it's like this situation is so fucked that they're gonna take you guys hostage and try to demand shit. So like, you can go back in there, but like, I'm just letting you know that they might try to take you hostage. And they're like, okay, we'll go back in there. We'll stay close to the door, and that'll be it. And yeah, like, Ryan and Quentin had to be in a room with shit and leeches coming out of the pipes in the showers, getting onto all their stuff for 18 hours. They had to be in that shithole, and they couldn't get any running water, so everyone smelled like shit. And it was a great 2 days for the Jeffersonville Clark County Correctional Facility.
So that's the kind of thing that like is especially when that happens. That's like I always think about the people who are filming and like them secretly being like, that's great television. Like, and they don't want to admit it. Like, there's so much human suffering going on in front of them, but like, you know that there are producers in the room going, "That's great TV."
I was like so enthralled with this shit. I had cookies I just baked in the oven. I was like, "Oh my god, bro, this is nutty, dude."
That's exactly what it is, because that's like one of the worst days of possibly of a lot of these like crewmates' lives, you know, just this like horrible experience.
It was the worst day of anyone who's worked at that jail's life, and anyone who's been an inmate at that jail's life, for sure.
At the very least of their life being incarcerated. I would assume the day that they were sentenced to 500,000 years in prison.
Well, here's the deal, though. This is what's fucked about the show. When you realize that this is jail, and that people who are in jail are arrested for crimes they have not been convicted of, you know? Like, these are people who have not technically been convicted of a crime. They've just been arrested for, you know, suspicion of a crime or an alleged crime. These are people who, you know, have been charged but not prosecuted. And it's like, man, bro, these conditions are rough.
Yeah, for suspicion of a crime. Well, it's funny because whenever I'm listening to true crime documentaries, like you know me and my love of our dear Douglas Spink, where like he spends so much time in jail, in that like not in prison, in jail. Like I think he spent like 10 collective years of like the 50-ish years that he lived in jail, and then a lot of that was also spent in prison. I think he spent another like 5 years or something in prison, fucking 5-10 years in prison. So like 2/3 of his life to like 2/5 of his life was in jail and prison combined. And it's just really funny to think like about this mushmouth, like Redditor ass dog fucker being in these conditions. And just the fact that like that happens to lots of different people from lots of different walks. And like, you kind of know that someone like Douglas Spink didn't do well in jail. Like, he would send letters to lawyers being like, this is unconstitutional according to Roe versus Wade. Like, that he got arrested for dog fucking. And you just think like that someone in the same pod, right? Like, as these normal people like Tammy and fucking Brian and Ryan and all these people are just like, one of them's a dog fucker. One of them was, you know, is going to be proven not guilty and he'll not be in jail soon. Like,
yeah, dude. Well, one of the, in F-Pod in season 2, there's a moment at the tail end of the season where a new inmate comes to the pod and they pull her papers and they find out that she's in for, assault against her 6-month-old child. So like Ashley and everyone, because basically I think they said like 38 of the 39 women in F-Pod were mothers.
Right.
And so then half that number, it's like 23 of 24 women. It wasn't that many women. It was like actually like 28 of 29, I think. But most of them were moms, and they were like not having it with this chick. And they were literally about to make this girl go to segregation, but right before they go to send her to segregation, they're like, no, don't go, you know, it's fine, it's cool. And Ashley is freaking out. Ashley's ready to fucking kill this woman, and she is like, what the fuck? I thought we were all ready to send her to segregation. Why do we all want her back? And they're like, oh yeah, because they're got drugs coming in, a shipment of drugs coming in, and they don't want anything fucking it up, so they don't want her pulled. So the second it's about the drugs or whatever, yeah, they'll be buddy with this, infant assaulter.
Yeah, it's like, well, like what level of assault?
Alleged.
Yeah.
Well, so it was broken ribs, and when it was broken ribs, I was like, CPR potentially, like, because like that's what happens when you do CPR, is you fucking break people's ribs when you do CPR properly. So it's like, fuck. And that's what she tells Mona Lisa, because Mona Lisa talks to this chick. She's like, I gotta go see, because Mona Lisa tries her best to be a peacekeeper to what she can, but when shit gets too complicated, she pulls out. But before things get too complicated with this chick, she's like, talks to her, and and Mona Lisa has dealt with some manipulators already in F-Pod in her 45-ish days, 50 days in so far. So she's trying to suss her out, and they don't come to any determinative fact there. Again, all inmates are innocent until proven guilty. But she says that it was her husband who was like trying to do like CPR on the kid, or he stopped breathing. He tried to do CPR, which is by the cracked ribs or whatever, and she's getting it too. So I don't know. I mean, maybe look into that fucking case. Jefferson Clark County, filmed in like 2016. I don't remember the chick's name, Damaris or something like that. She had a kind of a weird name. You can go look into it if you want to. I could give two fucks.
This actually almost happened to my family. My older sister broke her collarbone. She ran into a door frame and broke her collarbone. And apparently my parents were pulled aside and talked to by Child Protective Services because a lot of parents will break their children's collarbones by like yanking on their arms and pulling them too hard if they're misbehaving. Damn. Yeah, and they were like, no, she just fucking ran into a door frame. Like, you know, so I don't know, they could have been 60 days in too.
Yeah. No, it's fucking crazy, man. This is why I like watch this shit, because I don't want to go to fucking jail. I'm fascinated by this because I don't want to be here. Like, yeah. I don't want to be here, and I don't want to be there. And I genuinely have a lot of empathy for people who make bad choices in life and find themselves in these situations. And I feel especially empathetic and sympathetic for people who don't do shit wrong and still manage to find their way wrapped up there.
It's really funny
as an accessory or some bullshit they really shouldn't be blamed for.
Yeah, it's really funny now that I think about it, because like every person I've ever known who's like pressuring me to like, oh man, you know, you gotta be at this party, you gotta go out, you gotta do this, let's like, you're not gonna get in trouble, let's do this. I'm like, why the fuck would I even take the remotest fucking possibility to be out there when I don't even like any of you fuckers? First of all, like, why would I put up with the merest potential that this might happen, so that I could spend 4 minutes having fun? Like, I always think about this whenever it's like, I'll always see like some person on Twitter X, who will like, and it's always a sex worker. No offense to all the sex workers who listen to our show. There's got to be none of them. We drove all the artists away so when that career didn't pan out, yeah, the sex work starts.
The professional sex pest followed after.
Yeah. Dude, the Twitter artist to sex pest pipeline is real. just look at oh my god, what's his face? Bob Draws or whatever his name is. The guy with like the little like ball sack hair and the big ass eyes. Do you remember this guy?
No.
He was kind of infamous for like, he basically linked a bunch of OCs together. Like he just like anyone whose OC he liked, he would just draw them as part of like a collective world. And then it turns out, you know, spoilers, he was a sex pest, because no one who does art is not a sex pest at this point. Like it's just, you're all just hiding it really well. I can tell, I can feel it. No, that's not true, obviously. I know it's not true, but it happens enough times, because like those kinds of people, you know, who get a following and who have that power, like, yeah, you know, of course they're gonna indulge in those proclivities. Like it's a chicken and an egg situation. Not all artists are sex pests, but all sex pests are artists. Yeah, like I just find it really fascinating that there are so many people who will be like, oh man, you're really missing out on like this aspect of life. And then you just look at the just amount of like downsides or pain in the assness or politics.
The consequences.
Yeah, or consequences. Because I was thinking about this in the shower. Like whenever a woman insults you by saying like, yeah, but you don't pull any bitches, I'm like, the last time I had a girlfriend was one of the worst experiences of my life. Why would I want to do that shit again?
Yeah, no, like that's the thing, is it's like it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth dealing with this shit. It's not
worth putting up with, like, yeah, whenever like, especially because this is like the best insult that like Twitter women have, like this very specific brand of like Twitter women have, where they just insult either your penis size or your lack of sex, whatever it is, regardless of the argument that you're having. It's about erectile dysfunction. It always comes back to erectile dysfunction or a lack of ability to have any sex. And I'm always just like, so yeah, I don't have sex. I'm really not trying that hard, so I don't feel bad that I'm not having it. I don't go outside enough to have it. Like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
Yeah, you sure did call me out on not caring. Like, it would be like if I was getting into an argument with someone, like, online, and, like, my response is, like, I bet this guy hasn't even played Tears of the Kingdom. It's like, yeah, they don't. I don't really feel like playing it. Like, so what's the problem? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's my comeback. Is like, yeah, well, this guy hasn't played this game I like, so clearly they're not a winner.
It's so yeah, clearly this person does not actively engage frequently in an activity that I too also like and engage in.
Yeah, like that's really all it comes down to.
Like that is so funny. That is like, oh man, I can't believe what a fucking bitch that this guy doesn't like to go on the interstate and drive his car 80 miles an hour. Like,
yeah, I bet you don't even drive your car in the left lane. Like, which to be fair, that's one of those like oddly specific callouts that's really funny. But when people are like, yeah, I bet this guy doesn't even have any sex, he's just a chud. It's like, you're assuming that he is trying to, that he wants to, like, and you know what? And it's a fair assumption, because like I'm sure a lot of people, if they could get it, would like to get it. But I'm just kind of like, I don't care. I'm really not trying. I'm really not. I have things I'd rather do.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Like 5 hours courting someone for a potentially okay encounter.
Yeah, that's when you realize at a certain point, it just becomes, it's like the work you gotta put in for the chance at reward. It's like playing a gacha game, Myles.
It really is.
It's like, yeah, spend your $15 on 12 rolls. And maybe
you'll get that banner 4 Klee. Like,
yeah,
you'll get your banner 4 Klee.
You'll get your 5-star Ganyu that you had to spend $180 to
fact,
guarantee.
I was considering also saying Ganyu. But I went with Klee because it's a funnier name.
It is funnier.
Yeah.
Kecking.
Yeah.
Get your kecking, spend $75 for kecking.
I love the names of Genshin characters, because you hear them and you're like, that's not a real character. They're not real. Like, I like, someone was like, there was one character whose name was like Diona. I'm like, that's not a real name. Fiona's a real name. Dion is a real name. Diona is not a real name. That's not her name. Or like, Diona. Especially when they have like really Chinese names like Hu Tao.
Yeah, or yeah, Xiao Yu or something.
Yeah, and it's like this is all just very normal to them. Well, so as part of my modding duties nowadays, and I'm not trying to take it seriously because I haven't even launched the first mod that I'm working on, but like it is fun to know a lot of things like that. Like, I finally have confirmation that the name is supposed to be Raoul. And they just fucked up in Zelda 2, and they said, well, it's a legacy reference. We have to keep it. But his name is Raoul. It's in the files. Like,
I can prove it. It's in the file.
Well, I've always thought this. I'm like, that's always been my theory. His name's probably supposed to be Raoul, and it is. And now I know, because the arm is called Raoul Skin. And there is something really funny about file names like that I'm only just discovering. Like, and especially when people start talking not about like the actual perk in game, but in the file name. Like, people, I don't call it movement speed up. I call it all speed up 3 now. Like, because that's just what I'm used to fucking seeing the weapon name as. I could tell you what armor underscore 60 underscore head is. I can tell you which one that is. It's the level 4 upgrade of the Cap of the Wild. I know this now because I'm a loser. But yeah, I guess that's what I'd rather be doing than having sex, apparently.
It's so funny that you fucking brought up the funny file names, because each week when I make the thumbnail for this show, I have a file on my computer called Crackhouse Pic Dump, where it's just JPEG or PNGs and JPEGs, basically. And I just will name it whatever bullshit. And definitely, I was pulling it up to see if I had any particularly like funny names. So when we did the episode about Amazing Race and the Weaver family, I have a picture of them on the track where their father died, or close the second track where their father died, and it's just titled Cruel Weaver's Thesis.
I think the best part about the Weavers is the fact that they're not sympathetic. No one likes them.
No. It's multi-layered, man. It's multi-layered. It's great.
I guess I'll talk a little bit about people that I don't like.
Yeah, I'm done talking. You could talk for a bit. Take the floor, man.
Okay, cool. Because I want to talk about people that I don't like. Sam, I watched the Mario movie recently. The Super Mario movie. Is it the Super Mario Bros. Movie? Which
it is the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Yeah, which like
pretty sure.
There's a segment in the review about Garbage Pail Kids, the Garbage Pail Kids movie. Where they talk about how every big IP is usually called blank the movie. I'm pretty sure it's Super Mario Bros. The movie as well, the original like 1993 film, unless it's just called Super Mario Bros. But then there's only 2 movies called the blank movie. It's the Super Mario Bros. Movie and the Garbage Pail Kids movie. And so
what about the Simpsons movie?
Oh, you know what? You're so right. The Simpsons movie counts. But that one's not as funny because it's not multiple words. But yeah, you can't do The Simpsons the movie, so you got to do The Simpsons movie. The Super Mario Bros. Movie is probably like one of the most like mediocre films I would 100% recommend. Does this make sense? Yeah. Like,
yeah. I like people like were telling, because this is the thing is like I just thoroughly, when I watched the Mario movie in theaters, I just had such a thoroughly fun time watching it, and it went by so quickly that I just did not fucking I couldn't be fucking mad at anything really. Like, yeah, there's problems with the fucking film, absolutely.
Yeah, but I don't care. I don't give a shit.
But like, what the fuck? Like, what am I gonna sit here and jerk off? Be like, man, it's really fucked up how Brooklyn's flooding at the beginning of the movie, and that just isn't a problem at the end of the movie when they come back. That's just a problem that just got fixed off screen. It just started flooding for no reason, and then just stops flooding, and you know, it's fucking.
Well, of course it stopped flooding. They fucking broke a fucking wall in the sewer. And all the water probably went there. Like, I don't know, fuck off. Like, I don't care.
But exactly, but it's like I don't fucking give a shit.
Well, I did specifically bring this up because I was gonna talk about someone I hated in the film. But
who do you hate in the film? Who do you hate in the film?
Remind me to talk about Puss in Boots in a moment.
Okay.
So everyone hates Chris Pratt as Mario during no they don't. They all like him now, but during the trailers, during the press, everyone hated Chris Pratt as
Nobody
Mario.
believed in Chris
No one
Pratt.
believed in Chris Pratt. And then the movie comes out and he does a pretty damn good job overall. He's got a subtle Brooklyn accent, which is really nice. And it's a shame too, because what I will say is I do think he has a good Mario voice. I think when he's doing the commercial, it's pretty fucking good. But I would imagine that they were like, you know what? Focus on acting, don't focus on keeping a voice. Like, if you can't do it, don't do it. Like, and so he did a little Brooklyn accent. I would say it was just enough. I think Charlie Day is better as Luigi, but like, I think Chris Pratt does a good job as Mario.
Yeah.
But what no one is willing to address, the fucking elephant in the room, is that Anya Taylor-Joy is the worst fucking Princess Peach humanly possible. She's not trying. She's just doing her voice, and they just made her like generic kids movie girl boss woman. She's like still got a slight feminine edge to her, which I like, and she's still slightly excitable, which I like. I don't think that like she's a travesty, but like so much could have been solved if Anya Taylor-Joy just tried to go up an octave. Just tried to go up a little bit. Instead of just doing the voice she always does all the time, where she sounds like Marge Simpson, but they took the gravel out of her throat. And it was bothering me so much that I was just like, I could just
Gravelless Marge.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Ungravels your Marge.
And then it's just a deep fried picture of Anya Taylor-Joy.
Yeah. Where like, all I could think is I would just like to hear this line delivery, but from like the Peach who does the voice in Ultimate. Because the Ultimate voice isn't terribly aggressive, I don't think. It's pretty like maintainable and reasonable. The fucking Melee voice, I can't expect anyone to keep up with.
Go!
Ready? Go! But like, the Melee Peach voice in particular, when she's like, oh, like I can't expect anyone to be able to do that voice for very long. But the Ultimate Peach voice, I think, is very reasonable. But yeah, she's like not trying. And I don't try to bring this to the show, Sam, but I'm going to do it this one time. I think a lot of the doubt around Chris Pratt had to do with his politics, and I don't agree with his politics either. I'm also not going to be like, yeah, I don't agree with his politics, therefore he's a bad actor. Like,
Myles, do you not agree with his politics, or do you not agree with the fact that he goes to church?
No, it's
from
my
understanding of him going to, because I don't know what his politics are. I just know that he goes to church.
In particular, he has endorsed a lot of Californian senators that I think are too. I think their solutions, especially to homelessness and infrastructure, are basically gentrification and forcing the homeless into prison, just things I don't agree with.
Okay.
Yeah, keeping in mind that I did live in the now burning state of California, run by two skeletons. I did have at least some beat on the politics there, and so I did kind of know, that senator's
it's fucking horrible. Oh my god, it's horrible down there.
Yeah, I'm like, this senator that you're endorsing is not it, dude. I disagree. But the church stuff, I don't know anything about, and I don't have any definitive proof of the churches going on, so I don't care. But no one, probably because Anya Taylor-Joyce hasn't said anything that's offended everyone. Everyone's willing to be like, oh yeah, she'll do a great job, she'll be just fine. When apparently, nope, she didn't fucking try. No, she didn't try.
Well, I just gotta be honest. Can I make a bigger point here, Myles?
Yeah.
Can I take this and just take a step, make a giant leap for mankind here? We don't criticize actors and voice actors enough. We don't give them enough shit when we're trying to criticize stuff. We always say, oh, it's the writing. It wasn't their fault. It's the writing's fault. Oh, it's not their fault. It's the director's fault. When is it their fucking fault? When does the buck stop with Anya Taylor-Joy actually? And not stop with the voice director, or not stop with the writing.
I think it's a case of I think it's a little bit of both, because obviously the voice director has some say, but when you're a celebrity who's being overpaid to do this voice, right? You kind of come into the booth probably having some amount of power. As a fun fact, Mike Myers came into Shrek with his regular voice, and then at some point in production, possibly even late enough into production that it was a significant issue, he said, can I do a Scottish accent instead? And he had enough sway to basically codify Shrek as we know him to be now. So that's kind of a big thing. So it was probably a case of Anya Taylor-Joyce probably could have come in and said, I'm a big fan. I really like Peach's voice in the games. Can I try something like that? And she didn't. And
yeah. And then you have people like Seth Rogen, who is just basically in his contracts, I'm just gonna talk.
Yeah.
I'll be in the movie, but if you want me in the movie, I'm gonna be me and talk. And that's why Donkey Kong is not Donkey Kong, and Donkey Kong is Seth Rogen in Donkey Kong's fucking body.
Yeah, ultimately, Chris Pratt doesn't do such an incredible job that I think he needs to be in Mario Wonder. It's no, he's a great movie Mario. He's a great movie Mario when all he has to do is be more emotional than Mario usually is, have more of an emotional range than Mario usually has. And
I don't know how they're gonna follow up Charles Martinet, by the way. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
there.
It's fine. Well, the guy. Well, hear how he does in Wonder, because that's the guy. He's already working.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I mean, we'll know now how he does in Wonder. We'll be able to tell.
Well, who knows? I might not have to know how he doesn't Wonder. I might have to play that game on fucking mute if the fucking flowers talk to me too much. Who knows?
Well, just don't go near them. Just don't.
Yeah, it's I gotta jump or up and around and over.
Dude, it's like the Super Mario 64 Japanese that famous Nico Nico video where they make a game out of avoiding the homing one-up mushrooms, trying to not get caught by it. You have to, as you play the game, just avoid all the talking flowers. Yeah, I think the English language is the worst thing to ever happen to video games. There's in any Japanese or foreign game, when I hear the English language, I'm always like, get out of here. Get out of here. Go, move on.
Well, I don't mind. Here's the deal. I think the English language is cool when it's a medieval or fantasy setting.
Or even a contemporary, a GTA. That's fine. That's all good.
Yeah. That fucking makes sense and feels authentic. But when the Mario flowers are just talking straight English, it's a little off-putting. And it just sounds, by the way, it sounds like the fucking Nintendo Direct narrator, too.
Yeah, like, so that's the real problem, is that it's not someone being like, whoa, watch out for those, platforms. Like, it's not like a Mario-y voice, like someone who's having fun.
It's basically, it's like, whoa, hey! like
it's me, talking flower man. Yeah, like it needs to be like a fun voice, or they all need to have like a different voice. Someone who's gruff and someone who's like kind of wacky, funny, like dainty, feminine voice. And, like just lots of different flowers.
And maybe they will. You gotta play the game for myself. I'm gonna try to keep an open mind, but well,
it's funny because like that's the only problem you had with anything that you saw, I recall.
Yeah, and I didn't have any issue with the Strand shit or anything.
No, the Strand shit looks fun.
It's a little weird that there's no online co-op. Just like actually,
no, there is.
Well, like,
yeah,
is there?
Yeah, there is.
Like online co-op. Or
yeah,
like
you can you can play with friends online, and you can make a room as well.
Oh, okay, sick. Okay, I didn't feel like that was clear in the...
No, but they talk about it. They talk about it.
Okay, maybe they mentioned it, I just wasn't paying... I guess I was just fucking glazed over at that point. Oh, I was kind of skipping through it.
Yeah,
At a certain point.
It's not... They don't spend a ton of time on it, because why would you? Like, it's such a like... There's nothing to explain. Make a room and play with friends. It's like, all right, great. That's the end of it.
Well, sorry, they've been neglecting it for so goddamn long.
That's fair.
In their games. That it is kind of a fucking question if this shit's gonna have it. Also, a buddy of mine said that they explicitly did not have it. I'm like, oh, they didn't have it?
That's weird.
I mean, I don't fucking give... I wasn't paying attention for it. I don't give two fucks about playing these fucking games online with fucking anybody. Like...
Yeah, you can make a room and play with friends, or you can just, like, kind of play online. A bunch of people, like, send out, like, a ping or whatever they're gonna do for it.
Yeah, like setting up like checkpoints for other people is like interesting, and I just want to fucking play a 2D Mario game that actually looks like it's inspired on some base level.
This is it. They definitely have ideas here. Like,
yeah, definitely. That's what I felt anyway. I'm like, dude, you know what I was really into with Mario Wonder? I'm really into you're able to give Mario like a special power.
Yeah, so you can kind of do your own. You can do your level like however you want that time.
Yeah, because like what I like about it is you can only select one, but because you can only select one, they're all stupid OP. It seemed. I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah, where it's just the most insane idea.
Like you can wall jump straight up.
Yeah,
like. Which is sick, or you could just get a jump off. You can Dante jump off a wall, air hike off a wall.
Yeah, like there's just a lot of really cool little badges that they showed, and I definitely want to see more. And I'm assuming that there's some that are challenge based, some that are movement based, and some that make the level easier, and you can pick and choose what you want. Like that's great. That's a great way to just like get more out of the game.
Yeah, and it also seemed to like you're the companion character. It also seems like there's an option where it says like level recommended, so you can also just pick it, and if you just want to ignore the system or whatever, you can just pick the optimal one and fucking be on your merry way.
Yeah, so
which I also appreciate. If you don't want to, if you're like, why is Mario so fucking why has Mario got a skill tree now? Like,
yeah. I do like all that I saw of Mario Wonder. I did not like all that I saw of Anya Taylor-Joyce as Princess Peach. Yeah, but that movie is definitive proof. And I've said this before, that everyone has like a price, or everyone has like a moment where like, because we can make fun of people who just they see what they like, and they like what they know. But like, yeah, I was absolutely enjoying hearing like all the songs that I knew from Mario before. It was so nice to just hear like motifs and to like see all the Easter eggs. Like, oh, there's the ice climber's polar bear like in Mario's room. Like that is such a like pathetic thing for me to want, and I'm totally okay with the fact that I had a blast just watching for the Easter eggs and watching.
Well, did you want it, or were you given it and you liked it?
Well, like that's the thing, because we always hear like this criticism especially in like Red Letter Media videos or like other kinds of like nerd
I understand.
videos.
Oh yeah, I make that criticism all the time. But there's a difference between wanting it and there's a difference between like craving it, like, oh yeah, like I really want like a fan service. Because there's been times in the past where I've been Like, yeah, I really want a dead-ass fucking fan service project where you just don't fuck around and it's good, you know?
Yeah. Like, with the Mario movie, like, it was really nice to have, like, basically a secondary incentive to watch the film and to, like, really keep your eyes on the screen. Because I didn't look at my phone that whole movie because I might miss an Easter egg. And I want to see them all. Like, so that was a really fun little, like, sub-objective. But it is funny because allegedly, and I'm not 100% there because it was just, like, fucking text. But allegedly, but I do believe it to be an extent, or to be a possibility. I'm not taking it for granted. Aonuma and Fujibayashi said that they're not doing DLC for Tears of the Kingdom. They're just looking towards a sequel, which I think is fair. And I also think there's probably enough. Well, no, they said they're looking to the next quote unquote fun experience. But it seems like they don't really have anything more in mind for this particular iteration of Tears of the Kingdom. Some people think that means like an enhanced re-release for the next console. Other people think, yeah, let's just get to the sequel. Let's see what we're going to do next. And like, I'm mildly disappointed because I do think that that game could be really like cool with like a sort of Sonic Frontiers-esque, like, oh, instead of doing like these big like campaigns or whatever, like we just add a bunch of like new content to the game that, you know, that plays with the systems or that plays with the you know, yeah. We just dropped a new enemy into the map. There's just a new enemy now. And feel free to fight him. Like, you know, we've just put him in enemy camps. Things of that nature, like that are just like small, subtle things that you could just kind of drop in big bunches instead of trying to make a new fucking dungeon or whatever. And so like I was kind of like, that would have been a really cool little roadmap if they were willing to do that. But hey, you know, if they want to focus on a sequel, more power to them. I like the game that we got. I have no problem with them saying, sorry, but pack it up, moving on. But a lot of people are upset because they're like, we're never going to get a continuation of the story of Cass. Where did Cass go? Or they're like, we need to know who, you know, about the backstory of the dragons. What is, and I'm just like, stop.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up.
Stop. You're not going to, like, and by the way, even if we got this story, you're not going to like it. Because whatever fucking version of the story you built up in your mind, that is not going to be the focus of the DLC.
You know what's like funny about those people, Myles? Like, you know what just makes me like chuckle and laugh to myself about those people is like bro, if you really wanted that, you could just play Dark Souls. Like, you could just play something where there is this fucking bullshit story and lore and shit. The problem is that
they do, and a lot of them always say like, "Well, Dark Souls does it. Why don't they do it?" And it's like,
why does Zelda do it?
Yeah, and it's just like, well, because they don't care, because they don't want to. Like, give up, move on. Like.
And also, how are you fucking disappointed that you're not going to get a follow-up about what happens with the dragons? Bro, I'm not going to get a pro mode.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get a pro mode.
That's the really sad one, is like, because I was like, I would have loved a harder difficulty. And obviously, you know, with Yuzu, you can just get one, you just make it. But like, it's a shame because I would like an official version of that for sure. And maybe
I need a silver Lionel on the Great Sky Island.
And you know what? And maybe they will, like, but they said that they don't have any more plans for content at this time. And again, like, we only have a photo of some text that was translated. Like, that could be a completely falsified statement. I truly don't know. But it came from Famitsu. That's if that is in print, that's a reliable source as far as I'm concerned. So I'm keeping like an open mind, but ultimately, like, I'm kind of just like, yeah, okay, if they want to move on, I can see that. They kind of got everything that they wanted in there.
If they're gonna do DLC, they're gonna announce it either at the Game Awards or maybe a February or March 2024 Direct. If it doesn't show up in either of those two areas, especially the Game Awards this year, I don't think it's happening.
Yeah, and I would be like, because the thing is, like, they're saying that we just don't have any plans for any content at this time, and it's like, yeah, okay, I believe it. Like, You put every fucking idea you had for the last DLC into the game. Of course you don't have any ideas for more. I would be fucking exhausted if I made Tears of the Kingdom. I would be fucking tired. I wouldn't have any more ideas. Fans can have all the ideas they want. They didn't fucking exhaust themselves making the game.
Yeah, that's why we're getting fucking Shadow of the Erdtree Elden Ring DLC like 2 years after the fact.
Yeah, like there is no way that Elden Ring, they didn't try and get everything that they could in there. And it might have even been a case of like, I genuinely think that it's also a case of like, yeah, we did everything we could with the Switch. We kind of can't do any more.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, I think that might be a case of like we can't do anything else. We tried. The game performed at 15 FPS. We can't do it.
I think though it would be cool though if they did like a serious enhanced port for the follow-up Switch that's coming out next year. That would be awesome.
I actually,
where it's like where it's actually has like more stuff in it, you know, beyond just being a better looking
60 FPS game. And better draw distance. Like, no, I would love them to do an enhanced version. It would be cool if they did another like a Death Stranding director's cut of like, you take your old copy and if you want the new stuff, you pay fucking $10 and it's all there. And if you don't want the new stuff, you just play the game that you already own again, and it's fine. Everything's good. But there's a litany of reasons why that might not happen, and I love seeing people both cope and people who are like, but what about the story? It's like, you didn't like the story in the first place. Like the people who are saying like we need more about the story are the same people that I know who are like, yeah, the story was just not very good this time. It's like, why do you want more of it? Why are you opening up the opportunity for the story to suck harder?
Oh man, I don't, dude. People who are hype on story, who like games, I feel just bad for you.
They just need to accept that, like you know what, the first thing to get fucking jettisoned in if this game is over budget and not about to make it on time, the fucking story. That's the first thing. That's getting fucking thrown out the window first. And you just have to be okay with that, because that's not the point of the genre unless the game is top down made to tell a story. Which,
and also
a AAA game is not.
Myles, let's be real here. A lot of the people who want the story told in a very traditional, like, cutscenes and dialogue driven way. Like, that's how they want it done. And the fact of the matter is that a lot of games nowadays are like 20, 30, 40, 50 plus hour adventures that have a lot of gameplay in between, and it's hard to fucking pace a good story when you have a bunch of mission objectives you need to go do, or in the case of games like Elden Ring or fucking Tears of the Kingdom, fucking encouraged exploration.
Yeah, and to Elden Ring's credit, like, that game just has no conventional narrative. Like,
it just kind of gets out of your way.
Yeah, like, the actual plot of the game is, I would say, thinner than Bloodborne and Dark Souls, where, like the idea of, like, oh, you're just one of fucking 900,000 people who are gunning for the seat of Elden Lord. You just happen to be the only one who seems to actually be mobilizing towards it for some apparent reason. Because, like, otherwise it's just like, okay, you just entered the story fucking 70 hours into someone else's game. Like, if that makes any sense comparison wise. And that just does not tell a conventional story, and so instead it's just about, like, exploring this kind of culture, like, this culture of various people who are part of the lands between, and who have, like, a big kind of stamp on the world in question. Like, that game breaks down more into, like, Game of Thrones-esque factions and houses than it does, like, a proper linear narrative. And even then, I would say that there's a lot of things in the game that just are not very cohesive. Like a lot of the stuff with, like, the gravity world and, like, space and shit like that, the falling stars. Like, a lot of that's just like, yeah, we're not explaining any of it. We're not explaining any of it. It just is in the game, and you have to be okay with it. And with stories like that, people, especially that a fucking Nintendo fan would want, you're not gonna get it.
No.
You haven't gotten it. By the way, and you've never gotten it. You've never gotten it. Even in the ones that you like, you never got it.
And you'll never get it.
Yeah, because that's not the fucking...
Man, we're really breaking hearts and dreamers out there today,
but we have to. Like, you have to accept... Like everyone who's like, oh man, I really... Like, why won't they tell a story like they did in this game? It's like, they did. You just didn't like it this time. You just didn't like the content of the story this time. But it was told the same exact fucking way. Fucking Metroid's been telling the same fucking 5 stories the same way every single time.
Star Fox is the same story every time, literally.
Yeah, it's like, what do you want? That's why I feel so funny about people who are like, yeah, the Mario movie. It's like Miyamoto was involved in the Mario movie, and he is on record as saying he doesn't give a fuck about Mario stories. Like, to the point that it's torpedoed an entire spin-off. Like, what do you expect? What?
Oh yeah, Paper Mario.
Yeah, like, why? When people were like, well, why didn't they give it to DreamWorks, who they make masterpieces over at DreamWorks? It's like, probably because...
It's like, no! They're trying to make a masterpiece. They're trying to make a lot of money. And you know what's animation studio going to make a lot of money? Illumination.
Illumination, whose animation pipeline looks great and is cheaper than fucking Pixar, who spends twice as much money to make 5 times less as much money. Every time, by the way. Like...
Why don't you give it a DreamWorks who makes fucking masterpieces like Ruby Gilman, Teenage Kraken?
I wanted to bring up Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, because Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is, I would say, it's in my top 10 media that I love and I never fucking want to talk about. Like, and this
why don't you want to talk about it, Myles?
Because everybody who wants to talk about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish wants to talk about the same fucking 4 aspects of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and they always want to gas it up as like this fucking masterpiece of animation, when it's fucking great, by the way. It's funny and it's irreverent and it's serious and hardcore when it needs to be. It's a great surprise, and I like the villains in it. There's like 3 different villains and they're all great. I really like it. It's a great fucking film. It's dude, I so recommend this movie. And then when you see it, I just want to hear you be like, yeah, man, it was good. I like this, this, and this. And then you never fucking talk to me about it ever again. Because like, it's in that same boat as like Avatar: The Last Airbender, or like a Neon Genesis Evangelion. And Evangelion I give more of a pass to, as kind of like, cause that's such a formative piece of media for a lot of people. And even in the anime industry, it's still very legendary. Like a Full Metal Alchemist, I think, is a better comparison, where like you just kind of can't escape people who want to tell you how great Full Metal Alchemist is, but then they never have anything great to say about it. Like, does that make sense? Where it's like, it's like they're like, yeah, it's so fucking awesome, and then they can't give you details as to why. They couldn't tell you why it is, probably because they haven't seen it in 25 years themselves, but they remember it being really fucking great.
I mean, I could derail this podcast to tell you why I think Full Metal Alchemist's brother is good.
And you know what? Like, that's the thing. Like, I could fucking do the same with
Last Wish.
Yeah, I could with Last Wish. I could with a lot of things that I don't want to talk about. Bloodborne. I never want to fucking talk about Bloodborne with anyone. Like, it's more of an issue of I don't want to talk about it because it's going to be the same. It's going to be a fucking circle jerk of a conversation talking about the exact same 5 things, and no one's going to have any new ideas whatsoever about it. And I feel this way about Spider-Verse too. Like top 10 media that I love, and I don't want to fucking hear you speak about it. You're going to say the same shit that I already think. I don't want to hear you regurgitate my thoughts exactly. I don't care. And so like, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is one of these movies where like people like, but the big problem with Puss in Boots is that the Puss in Boots fandom has a problem with every other animated film because it's not Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which is this fucking incredible masterpiece to them. It's so funny. They'll negatively compare every movie that isn't Puss in Boots to Puss in Boots. Like with Pinocchio, they were like, Puss in Boots should have won the Oscar. No, fucking shouldn't have.
Do they have a timeline B P and B and A P and B before Puss in Boots and after Puss in Boots?
Yeah, like I'm sorry, but like if we're talking about Pinocchio and a movie that deserves to win an Oscar, like yeah, the Puss in Boots story is better than Pinocchio, but like this is we're awarding filmmaking, not plots. We're awarding filmmaking. And a stop-motion animated film that took 500 fucking thousand years to make, and by the way, has a great screenplay anyway, And it's still a good-ass movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like I got a weak plot. Like,
yeah, like, it would be like I keep saying, like, yeah, I'm Team Tears of the Kingdom for Game of the Year, but if Baldur's Gate 3 wins, I'd be like, fuck yeah, dude. That's awesome. If Starfield won, I would be like, oh, come on, dude. You can't do this.
No, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. I think you're safe.
I truly do think it's a 2-horse race between Tears of the Kingdom and Baldur's Gate. And honestly, the more the year goes on, the more I'm like, dude, Baldur's Gate has a great shot. Let's hope it happens.
Dude, also, I forgot to send it to you because there was only 5 reviews at the time. But because I kept saying, I'm like, yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 is gonna be like high 70s, like low 80s on PS5. Bro, it was at like 97.
No, I saw that
5 reviews, which was really funny. And I was like, Jesus fucking Christ.
And that's the thing. Like, they must have done a good job with the controls. Like, you know, that it plays so well on PS5, because I have a friend who's playing it on PS5 and they haven't complained once. Like, so they must have done a great job.
It's kind of a triumph, honestly. The way it looks when you watch footage, it's got to be something where in practice it's like way cleaner, because when you watch footage of it, it's a lot of sub menus. But I think once you get to playing, I'm sure it's all...
There's probably a lot of good shortcuts or a lot of good,
exactly. The
menus kind of collapse out of each other. Yeah, I mean, it looks... But it is funny that it's like... It's on Metacritic Top 100 twice with 5 reviews. Like, that goes back to our, like, little... Our thing about just how, you know, some games just... You know, they just aren't weighted the same.
No.
But no, I mean, good. Like, I'm very happy with, like, I'm very happy with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Like, I don't mean to insult the film. What I mean to insult,
I don't think you have insulted the film.
No, what I mean to insult is people who I just want to be. I just want to be misunderstood. Like, I don't want to talk about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, because whatever you have to say about Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, that's my opinion too, and so I don't need to talk about it. I don't care. Like, I feel this way with, like, Avatar. Whenever people talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender, they're always like, man, Zuko, what a great arc. It's like, it sure was. It sure was, man. And it's a problem I have with a lot of, like, especially, like, media that I would call, like, it ain't that deep mediums. Not media. Because mediums. Because
holy shit.
Because, like, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, I would say it's a pretty deep film overall. Like, it's not the deepest thing I've ever seen in my life, but it's a really nice surprise. It's really amusing, and it's got a lot of themes, and it handles those themes with a good amount of attention to all of them. So it's a really well balanced film as well, right? But it happens to be an animated film. And most animated films made in the United States of America ain't that deep. And so I disagree that you can't make a whole claim that an entire medium of entertainment or art is not that deep. No,
you can make claims that a majority of the media in a medium isn't that deep.
That's more of what I mean. Yeah, that's more of what I mean, because I don't mean to say, like, the medium of animation is limited. It's not. But, like, the landscape that we have for this medium, what we have for the medium, and what we have seen and what we know, and that's what we can discuss and contextualize, ain't that deep. And there are times in which it's not supposed to be. Like, I'm not going to say 2D animation ain't that deep, but the vast majority of cartoons throughout the history of cartoon making ain't that deep. And it was never, and in a lot of cases, that wasn't the intention. That wasn't the goal. Sometimes it's the goal. And when it is the goal, they always use animation very well. But, you know, most cartoons made stateside ain't that deep.
But Myles, do you understand how that can be applied to literally any medium? Like, most music isn't that deep. That's true. Like, that's 100% true. Have you go on Spotify and look how much music there is. It's not that deep. Most video games aren't that deep. Go on Steam and look at all the fucking games. They're not that deep.
But I think that there's a difference between like the level of animated films that ain't that deep versus the level of even video games that ain't that deep. Because I would say that the compendium of games that are that deep, by the way, and are that deep just artistically, because if we're talking mechanically, oh my god, that's an even bigger fucking list. But like, if we're talking games that are that deep mechanically, throughout, I don't know, the fucking 50 years of games, 60 years of games, like we've done pretty fucking well overall, you know? Like even more obscure titles, like we have quite a few games that very much are that deep. Whereas like major mainstream CGI animated films by the big studios, that's a very different category than all of video games, right? Like, so I will say, I'm being a little too like broad. I should be more granular about what world I'm operating in.
Yeah, like because I can appreciate the statement that like a majority of the content produced on the three major cartoon networks between the Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Disney, it ain't really that deep or really ain't that great. Like as like art or entertainment, I can agree with. When you really hyper specify it down, I can agree.
That's more of what I mean.
Medium,
yeah. That's more what I mean.
Because, I'm glad we're on the same page.
Because it's about it's not about like my problem with the medium. It's about the amount of stuff people have to discuss when they very much are focused on or interested in one particular aspect.
Sorry, I keep cutting you off this episode.
No, it's okay. It's because I'm on a fucking tirade, and we got to make sure that I'm not saying something head ass. I appreciate this.
You used a great vocab word earlier called the landscape, which I need to start saying more often because I feel like, because you're right, like the landscape of like what comes to theaters, or when we were growing up, the landscape of what was on TV was really important. Now, shit's gotten fucked because of the internet, and now there's so much content from so many different places that appeals to all kinds of different people about so many different niches and weird shit that, like, it's become a little more complicated and a little more hard to describe the landscape, but definitely when it comes to at least theatrical releases, that's a clear landscape of what's coming to your AMC.
It's harder than ever to kind of say like, oh, 2D animation is so limited, because like with Netflix, like you can actually watch quite a few 2D animations that are, first of all, produced for Netflix and are probably pretty fucking good. And other ones,
dude, I'm so excited for the Scott Pilgrim in November. Yeah, that's awesome.
I really like Hilda. If you've ever seen that show,
I've seen clips of it. It looks really cute.
Yeah, I think you'd actually like Hilda. Style. I think you'd like Hilda a lot, to be honest. It has a similar kind of Steven Universe-esque, like very comfortable, like relaxed sort of story, but it's a little bit more mundane than Steven Universe. Obviously, Steven Universe has galactic stakes, whereas like Hilda's a little more like, it's me in this town, baby. And I really like the show a lot. I didn't watch season 2, but I did like what I saw of season 1. I watched all of season 1, and that's one of those shows with a rare good finale, by the way. Season 2, I think is going to be really good. I do need to watch it, but it's been a couple years since I even watched the first one. But yeah, you have Tuca and Birdie, which I think that's a really great show. That's BoJack Horseman, but good, like that show. Because it's fucking one season. No, it's 2 seasons. I only saw season 1 though, and it doesn't have time to ruin itself. So good job. And it's also just a lot more kind to its main characters. Like I don't watch it and think, why the fuck did I bother? Because it actually had something to fucking say to me. Like there's I think I talked about like that Frog Warrior show. Did I bring that up on the show?
Amphibia, yeah.
No, there's Amphibia, and then there's the Amphibians or something like that.
Oh, no way!
Well, so the other show is it's a Netflix exclusive show based on a series of children's books written by, I believe, a football player who just happened to write books, and it's like about like these like warrior toads. Like they're basically like toads who live in the outback, and it takes place in Australia in sort of like not a microscopic world, but like, you know, a world scaled for these like frogs or toads or whatever they are. Probably frogs, because no one gives a shit about toads, and Battletoads was already taken. And that has like an animated series, and like I looked at the reviews and everyone's like, yeah, it's a really great action show. It's really fun. You know, watch it with my kids and it's great. You have shit like The Dragon Prince, which is like, that's more popular, but still kind of under the radar. And it's by the fucking Avatar team. like the original writers. And it's like, so like when I'm talking about like 2D animation, like the landscape of 2D animation has expanded with streaming. Like there's so much good shit to watch. Whereas like the three big networks, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and Disney Channel, like that's a different landscape, and that's a more fucking dismal landscape. That shit is dire as fuck. Where like if you want a good ass fucking show, like it's probably buried on fucking Netflix. It's like what we were talking about, the Loud House crossover, where there was what the Elemento Cons or whatever it was called. That teamed up with the Loud House Strike Force.
Yeah, crossover with the Super Noobs and Almost Naked Animals and Garage Band.
Bro, I just found out about a show called like Glitch Tech or something that was on Nick. Has a really cute art style. Like the characters seem really adorable, and it's like VR based. So it's sort of like a reboot-esque thing, but like for millennials and Gen Z.
Yeah, I think I've seen a photo of this because I just like to look at cartoons from the 2010s and reminisce about like, because I sent you a screenshot of Canadian television shows from like 2010 to 2019,
and it was just dire.
It was like it was horrifying. That list of shows was horrifying,
bro. Like let me just say, Canada and especially Canadian animation, they have made good shit. But like a lot of it is fucking
they got
heinous.
They got some fucking Kino shit, bro. And all Canadian TV makes me very nostalgic. No matter how garbage it is, it just makes me very nostalgic because I grew up on it. So I
always bring up Edgar and Ellen. I have an affinity, and I only just realized this in the later years of my life, but I have a massive affinity for Ruby and Max.
Oh my god, dude. I love Ruby Max. I love Ruby Max growing up.
I have a very specific affinity, and I only just realized when I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who, no joke, did not like Ruby and Max. And it's one of the most like, because they just thought Ruby was too rude, and they thought Max was a little too badly behaved. Like, I don't know. Like one of these things where it's like, you have these feelings as a kid that you can't really explain, but sometimes you just didn't like the show.
Well, no, that's the thing. I think I might have said this before in the show, but growing up as a kid, I had two modes of thought. Interested in the TV show, I could give two fucks about what's going on right now.
Yeah, it
was one or the other.
It just is on.
And is on.
Yeah, because I watched a lot of My Gym Partner's a Monkey. Do you think that I tuned in to My Gym Partner's a Monkey? No,
that shit is on. Like Camp Lazlo, that shit is on.
Yeah, like, I never liked Camp Lazlo. I didn't care. Even when it was on, I tried to not watch it. Like it was one of those things. Meanwhile, Ned's
The
Declassified.
Life and Times of Juniper Lee is on.
Yeah, like, Ned's Declassified. Meanwhile, I gave a shit. I wanted to watch Ned's Declassified.
Powerpuff Girls, locked in. Dexter's Lab, locked in. Johnny Bravo, locked in. Ed and Eddie, in my later years, locked in.
Yeah, it was a little too like,
I was too young to get it.
It was a little too like cynical for me as a kid, and as an adult now, it's way funnier.
Yeah, I like totally. It wasn't until I was in junior high and got the swine flu and had to watch the marathon where they played nothing but Ed. It was literally Ed or nothing. Like, so I got Ed. I get Ed.
You get Ed. You got down. Got Ed. Yeah, no, Get Ed It's On. I watched a lot of that show, too, as a kid, because it was on.
Jetix is the It's On channel.
Well, Jetix had a lot of, like, the worst anime licenses. Like, they had fucking Shinzo. You remember that shit? Like,
what the fuck is Shinzo?
It's one of those animes that's, like, a fantasy story about we have to find an ancient treasure. It's a big fucking journey to find an ancient treasure.
Oh, that's like okay. So there's a lot of stories like that.
Yeah, it's like a One Piece reactionary kind of, probably not even reactionary, but it is a similar like shonen of like everyone's after this thing, you know?
Yeah, I remember like, I think it was Magi Nation or something. That was kind of like my era, or like Spider Riders or some shit like.
Yeah, I definitely, I think that the cartoon landscape like that is dire, whereas if you kind of expand your horizons to all animation, like, and anything that's on, you know, whatever channel, whatever way you can watch it, like 2D animation is doing very well. Like if you expand it to every possible fucking show that you could watch, whereas network 2D animation, not great. Fucking studio released CG films, it ain't that deep. And especially with Pixar fucking slumming it constantly. Like, I would still have said this when Pixar was at their game, by the way, because then you still had DreamWorks and other animation studios like Blue Sky who were releasing It Ain't That Deep movies. You know, Over the Hedge and Ice Age, and like those weren't Rio, yeah. It ain't that deep, and it never was, and it wasn't supposed to be. But like, it's funny because if we lived in the era when DreamWorks was releasing How to Train Your Dragon and Puss in Boots: The Last Witch, like level films, and Pixar was still at the top of their game, CG animation kind of would be that deep. It would be popping off, and Illumination would be like the sort of outlier as opposed to what they are now, which is kind of the standard. But yeah, it's like Puss in Boots just happens to be this one movie that happened to be really good amongst a sea of CGI films that, like, and again, they followed it up with Ruby Gillman, and it played opposite fucking... What even came out last year for Pixar? Do you remember? Was it Luca? What even was it? Like,
I don't care what they do anymore.
Lightyear. You know me, I care what they do.
Was Lightyear last year, or was Lightyear this year?
2021, I think, was Lightyear. I think it was the same year as Turning Red.
Christ.
Right?
Oh, dude, well, it's so funny, because a couple days ago, I was on YouTube, I was just scrolling YouTube, and I got recommended a video about Mario All-Stars, Mario 3D All-Stars. It was like Super Mario 3D All-Stars. How bad was it 3 years later? I'm like, fucking 3 years?
Yeah.
3 years?
Bro, like,
Fuck!
I got sent a video that a friend of mine watched because he had to share the pain. The pain! And, like, it was this video called How Innovative Was Super Mario 64? Not That Much. And it was just, like, the most, like... It was like, well, it wasn't even the first 3D game. And if Mario 64 didn't happen, something else would have innovated. So, yeah, didn't do much, did it? And like, that's the funniest thing, because it is the exact polar opposite of, like, these animation people who, like, will see, like, one good thing and be like, this is the start of a new era. And it's like, no, it's not. One good movie got made, you guys. Whereas, like, gamers are like, yeah, I mean, it was all right, I guess, but, like, was it really that important? And, yeah, like, it was.
Kinda.
Yeah, like...
That's why we call it the camera.
Yeah, with Mario 64, like, in particular, it wasn't about being first, it was just about having enough design decisions that solved relevant problems that, like, 3D games could now kind of reliably use similar elements from Mario 64 and build on it. Like, that's what innovation is. Like, if we're talking about, like, innovation in what Mario 64 did, because I've always said Ocarina of Time is more innovative than Mario 64, not because Mario 64 isn't innovative, but because the industry has trended away from platformers. And so there is more from Ocarina of Time that remains relevant to game design nowadays, which is unfair, in my opinion. It is unfair that, like, Mario 64 can be called less innovative than it is, not because it didn't do anything, but because its effects are less strongly felt, because we're just not making that same game as much. But you also have to keep in mind there was an era when that was most of what was getting made.
Exactly. Like, this is the thing, Miles. It's these fucking kids, because I bet the person who made that video was fucking 19 or 20 or 20 or 20, 21 or 22. Like, some fucking college kid who fucking grew up with the fucking Wii and a 360 or a PS3. And maybe skip the Wii U, and like, you know, these fucking kids, like, they don't know. They don't fucking know. They don't care about their history. Game companies don't want them to fucking buy old games because most of them are fucking better than what gets released nowadays.
And it's not even just about, like, they don't care about their history. It's that they are too young to, like, realize that the way that they use words is not the way everyone else uses words. Like, so they get hung up on this idea of, like, well, is it even that innovative? It's like, it doesn't matter. It solved a lot of problems. It solved a lot of problems that developers were having, and it also was on a scale big enough that its impact could be felt, and people could see it and use that information. Like, this is how I feel whenever I see someone who's like, well, you know, Ocarina of Time might have, you know, it didn't even do that because this obscure PC game did something similar, and it's like, well, no one played it. So it didn't matter.
It popularized.
Yeah, it popularized. Like, and then even then you look at the PC comparison and it's not really 1-to-1. It's not the same system that we use now. Like, whenever people are like, yeah, Resident Evil 4 didn't really do the it wasn't the first third-person shooter. That goes to, like, some game you've never heard of and it looks like ass.
Yeah, it's called, fuck.
I can picture the box art in my head, by the way. Like, it's like this, like, silhouette of a guy holding a gun. Like,
yeah, it's like,
with, like, a blue portal around him.
It's like fucking. It's like something.
It's got the word like recon in it or something, like bullet recon or something.
It's like a third person. Yeah, it's like a third person cover shooter on like PS2 in like 2005 or 6, I think.
Well,
and it's like.
By the way, if it was 5 or 6, then like it's only a couple months late to the party. Because
but even that game, while it innovated and created the modern and contemporary cover shooting, it was Gears of War that popularized it into the kind of game archetype of the cover-based third-person shooter that we know today, and that we still see a lot of big-budget games be. Granted, to a way lesser extent, because in the 7th generation,
that was it, man.
Like the 5-hour game was like huge in the 7th generation, and now we just never get games like that. You're gonna get fucking blit up if you release an Order 1886 style game now.
Not only do we not want those games, you couldn't afford to make it. It wouldn't.
No way.
Yeah, like you couldn't justify selling it, and you couldn't make it fast enough.
We're getting to the point where like. We're getting to the point where it's even. My voice been cracking a lot this fucking episode.
It's all good, man.
God, good lord. But we're even at the point now where I feel like, because I got my a buddy of mine who covers basketball stuff for the San Antonio Spurs has to play NBA 2K. And he was showing me in the microtransactions how, like, in order to buy, like, 70,000 coins for your ultimate team, or your my team, my player team, or whatever, it costs, like, $170 for, like, the highest amount of microtransaction V-Buck equivalent you can buy. And that's on top of the $70 game, and that's on top of a $10 battle pass, maybe even more. And it's like, how can you even justify, as a big gaming business, making a game that is a one purchase $70 product that will get, out of people's heads in 2 to 3 weeks, and then have to be sold for 50 and then 40 and then 30, or be sold pre-owned, when you can make one game that, as long as it's kind of decent or has an audience that are just fucking here, they'll spend individuals will spend hundreds of dollars on your product instead of just 60 or 70.
That is the gaming equivalent of because it's on. Like, where it's like, oh, well, because it's this new thing with some degree of like a live service. This is how I feel about Overwatch 2, where everyone I know, and to be fair, like a lot of new releases, people do this. Like I have friends who just bought Starfield because it's new. And now they're complaining about it. Like, which is so funny, because it's just like, I mentioned this to someone where I was like, dude, if Todd Howard came out as like transphobic, like J.K. Rowling, and everyone was like, oh, well, we gotta cancel him, I would lose nothing. Like, and I would not fucking moralize and grandstand about how great I was because I didn't get Starfield. Like, I would lose nothing. And I would not feel a fucking shred of any kind of remorse in my entire life for ever supporting Todd Howard, because I never have. And it's not because I'm against Bethesda, it's just because they've yet to release a product I want. And that's it. And I would like to try Daggerfall and Morrowind, historically speaking, but like, I'm gonna be honest with you, Sam, I'm probably not even gonna like those games that much.
You won't. I don't think you'll like. Yeah. I think you should just play Kenshi. I think you might like Kenshi.
Kenshi seems more up my alley because it seems to have more real time elements.
Yeah, I could see. Yeah, it's real time with pause. I could see you just getting annoyed at Daggerfall because there's some shit that is just annoying in it. Because I was laughing my ass off because I was reading people's thoughts and impressions on Starfield, and people would be like, "Oh yeah, it's like, oh, there's a lot of fast travel," or "Oh yeah, there's a lot of load screens." I'm like, "Oh okay, it is like Daggerfall, okay, like you fucking fast travel everywhere." But the difference is that in Daggerfall, when you fast travel, it tells you how many days you're traveling to do it. So you are fast traveling in the fact that it took you a second of real time to arrive at a location, but it took your character 35 days to get from one side of the map to like this corner of the map over here. And if you have a quest that you need to complete and it's going to take you 40 days to complete the quest, well, you just spent 35 days getting there. So you better have had a teleport spell ready at the original base so you can just snap your face back, snap your fingers and just warp back, or maybe not select that quest and pick something else that you actually could get to on time. So there's game elements to it, along with giving you a time frame of what actually happened. And the overworld is barren in the sense that it would have taken you 40 days to cross it by hand. So it makes sense that you're fast traveling. Where, like, I don't know because Starfield's a modern video game, time limits are bad. Time limits for quests or keeping track of dates and stuff for quest is
because it doesn't respect my time. Doesn't respect my time.
But so instead, that just leads to you warping everywhere with no sense of time passing, and I bet that does feel disjointed for people. So it's one of those things where it is the same fundamental mechanic in both Daggerfield and Starfield, but Daggerfall positions it differently and has mechanics that play into it. And Starfield just doesn't. It's just a load screen. It's just fast travel.
It's like,
there's nothing interesting about it.
Like, even just putting a fucking cost to like, oh yeah, it takes this much to fucking hyperdrive warp.
Yeah, like in Daggerfall.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you gotta spend 5 gold per day of travel to sleep at inns or whatever, or you can rush it and travel in half the time, or you could travel recklessly and have the chance of something bad happening to you, like your shit getting stolen or you tripping and hurting yourself on your fast travel. Like, that's a decision. That's interesting. That's gameplay in a role-playing game. And I just feel like I kind of want... I got a new... powerful PC, and I've done nothing but just want to play fucking beautiful, stupid-looking games on it. And a part of me kind of wants to boot up Skyrim and give it a shot, because I feel like I could get a lot out of Skyrim, and I feel like I feel like I'm primed to like all the Elder Scrolls games, because I thoroughly enjoyed Daggerfall. And from my understanding,
turn on my lights real quick. I'm just
you're good.
Todd McFarlane's gonna yell at me.
Lights off.
Dude, that was me during the Mario movie.
It's Leonardo DiCaprio from fucking Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah, no, I mean, here's the thing, Sam. Like, now's the time to also get into Death Stranding, man. That game.
I downloaded it. I downloaded the director's cut.
That game,
it's already downloaded.
At 120 FPS at 4K is like, oh my god.
It's gonna be stupid, bro. And I got the DualSense Edge.
Oh. Yes.
I'm gonna be edging all over this game.
Dude, yeah, like, and that's the thing. Like, I have told people, like, yeah, if you're just not into like certain parts of the story, like, yeah, just feel free to like not read the logs, and if you have to start skipping the fucking cutscenes, yeah, like, do it. Like, it's more important to see the end of the game. I will say, once you get to chapter 9, you probably should start watching the cutscenes, because if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it right. Right now, so I beat Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. Yeah, can we talk about this?
It's fine.
Yeah,
please, yeah, sure.
I do want to talk about Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, because I think that I have found the official Copium game of 2023, and it's Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. I don't
feel like there's a better answer for that, but I'll have to sit on it.
There might be. Here's the thing: has it come out yet? Do we know?
The Copium game of this year?
Because every year there's a Copium game, and that should be a game award. That should be a game award game.
A cracky.
Oh, let's do a cracky for Copium game of the year, which is game that really ain't it, but everyone is gassing the fuck up.
Well, here's the thing, though. This is the thing, Myles. Because here's the reality, Crackheads. I'm not tuned into the contemporary games industry at all. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on social media. I'm on Reddit, but I don't feel like people have actual game discussion on Reddit, really, outside of like maybe like Patient Gamers or something. So it like I don't really see people talk. To me personally, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is a game that came out I saw one review of from Mr. Matty Plays, who is a Jet Set Radio guy, as the same as me. And I never heard anyone else talk about it. And the only reason I'm playing it is because I'm a Jet Set Radio guy and I like that series. And that's it. Like, I feel like any pre-release hype because this game's pre-release hype was pretty massive. If you look at like Twitter stats and stuff at the time, it was really huge. And I personally do not feel like that was necessarily reflective of the game's online like reception. And to me, it seems like people liked it. It's like, we liked it, good reviews, move on. Yeah, which happens to a lot of games.
But this is one of those games, and I bring up the copium aspect of it because I don't think that it has to be like a complete shit show. Like, because we talked about God of War Ragnarok last year, right? Where like Ragnarok was a copium game award. I don't think that Ragnarok is probably a shitty game. I doubt that that's like a bad game, but like, people probably want to think it matters more than it does. Like the people who like really are like into it. And so like, I know a lot of people who are like, yeah, this is the most Hogwarts Legacy might be the real copium game of the year 2023.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, but like that is one of those games where it was kickstarted. It's an indie game by a team people like already. Oh, is it not kickstarted? Okay, so it's an indie game.
Yeah, no, I don't think
by a team people like already, and it's a spiritual successor to a game that people like. So like, there is this kind of like this desire to like really feel like what they're playing is like way better than Jet Set Radio Future.
Yeah,
which is that's the copium. That's the copium like element.
Yeah, like that's the. Also, I had to check to make sure it was not a Kickstarter game.
Okay,
and because like that's kind of what I told you. It's like, like this was fun. I had a good time with it, but I feel no desire to continue playing the post game or like. I like, to me, it just made me want to replay Jet Set Radio Future is like what it made me want to do. Is I was like, man, I really love Jet Set Radio Future. I'd much rather just replay that. And going forward, that's a game that would be the game I would go back to if I wanted this vibe and energy. I would just replay Future. Like,
yeah, but like especially the first 10 hours of that game, people were like, bro, this like finally gaming is back. Like I would see these reactions from people who like really wanted it to be this like this big success story, and it just wasn't, because that we don't fucking live in fucking Schwarzwald, Hansel and Gretel's fucking fairy tale land.
Let's go to Steam charts and actually like see for ourselves, because I will say about this game is that okay, so its all-time peak is 6,915 players on Steam, which is respectable, but pretty not nice. A crazy success, but definitely respectable for a smaller indie studio like Team Reptile. 24-hour peak, 1,000 people playing half an hour ago, little under 800. So people are still playing it, and it's got a core base of people. I've noticed the mod scene for this game is pretty poppin'. Like there's already multiplayer. There's already complete overhauls to the combat to add in like juggles and stuff.
That was what really fucked with my brain, is that the combat is in the game and there's a style meter connected to it, and it sucks. Like that was the moment where I was like, what the fuck? Because if you're gonna do anything that can be better than Jet Set Radio Future, it is the combat.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of stuff you could do better in Jet Set. You know what my problem is? I'll just be honest. I feel like before this game came out, before I played it, and when I was a Jet Set Radio Future head, and I still am, and I love the game. My two core problems with it on a gameplay level that are frustrating is that you can't U-turn on a rail, which is troublesome because sometimes you are approaching a rail at a perpendicular, and you need to go left, and you'll just automatically hook right, and it's kind of a problem to like get off and stuff sometimes. Or like turn around. And the other was that if you do not have the ability to boost, sometimes you're like really in a bad spot. And it can be like really like frustrating to like get around, and sometimes you just need that boost of speed to like really get like cooking and moving. And they decide to address this by giving you like a boost pack, like a Sonic the Hedgehog style, like Sonic Adventure homing attack without the homing, where it's just a little dash, like horizontal dash in the air, and it makes the platforming really easy to the point where I think it's a little like too easy, and it's a little too easy to keep your combo going and maintain it for basically forever. And it just made getting high scores fun, but at a certain point meaningless because you aren't really rewarded for it at a certain point. And you're never really challenged in a major way by the AI to get super high scores in whenever you have to do like the crew battles. And the story starts really interesting and I kind of think falls apart and is just this like boring fucking melodrama. Because at first it kind of starts and you think it's going to be like a meta commentary about this game being a spiritual successor, and I feel like that kind of falls on the wayside. And I was like, that's a little disappointing.
And I appreciate their attempt at earnestness. Like because I always insult like games that really use like the meta commentary as a crutch. So I appreciate that they went for something earnest. But it is a shame when the earnest thing is worse than the potential of the meta commentary.
And like, that's the thing is, it's like, I'm playing it through Hades right now, because I beat Hades a couple times, but I didn't beat Hades enough times to really beat the game. So I'm doing a fresh file and I'm really thoroughly enjoying it. That's a fucking 10 out of 10 game right there. It's fucking masterpiece. And that's a game where the fucking VO adds so much shit to the characters alongside the great art in levels that game up so much, and the lack of dialogue or the lack of spoken word in Bomber Cyberpunk like really hurts this game. I think this game could have really used like some voice work because the cutscenes are so quiet. They're dead quiet.
I brought this up where like every cut took too long.
Yeah.
This was one of those things where it's like you really are like, I'm sorry, but like sometimes style, as nostalgic as it is, isn't done for the right reasons. Like, the reason that Sega games, especially like Jet Set Radio, were as dead quiet as they were probably budgetary.
And also, like, and here's the deal, like, that might be the case in this game, too.
Yeah,
it might also have been budgetary here, too.
I want to be fair to that as well, but like, in the original Jet Set Radio Future, you have a DJ Professor K who speaks, and the rest of the characters just kind of have like, you know, the yelps or whatever. Like yelps.
Yeah, and that's fine in that game because like core narration, because the way Jet Set Radio Future set up is core narration's delivered by Professor K with VO, and then story beats play out in real time, in engine. And thank you. And it's in text, but it's like fine. It's like it's fine. And also music's playing.
Yeah,
music's fucking constantly playing too. So in this game, when in Brahma Cyberpunk, it just goes really fucking quiet, and it's just like it feels like this is missing something. Like this is clearly like missing something.
I do feel like this would be a case of a game that could use just a really good like editor style set of cutscenes, like especially with the pace of it, it could really just use. I don't want to say Baby Driver level because that's like the highest possible level anyone can achieve of editing, but like I do think that like just a good amount of like energy to the cutscenes, making them punchy. Like I would say more of like a Devil May Cry 1 kind of like they're over in 50 seconds.
Yeah.
Or like Bayonetta is probably the best possible example. Like Bayonetta cutscenes are like a minute, 2 minutes long, and a lot happens in them. And there's usually something crazy that happens in the middle of the cutscene to make it worth it. While moving the plot forward, like that, there are ways to kind of get around. And here's the thing: obviously, you still have to animate those, and that's hard. But like there are a lot of ways to like kind of really like punch up a story on a budget. I think why is your camera out of focus?
Oh, what the fuck?
There we go. Yeah. There are ways to like kind of punch up a story if you really can't rely on either writing skill or voice acting because it's expensive.
Oh, absolutely,
yeah. And I just think that like Jet Set Radio views just blaring ass music, and like I have never wanted to skip cutscenes more in my life than I did at the first cutscene of Bomb Rush Cyberpunk.
Oh yeah, dude, it got to the point where I got to the point with that game where I just started listening to a podcast when I played it. I just was like, which I don't really do anymore. Like, I don't really do that.
I try not to. I really try not to. Like, because if I'm gonna purchase the fucking game, I do want to like experience it. I'll listen to a podcast if I'm like doing a fucking third, fourth playthrough of a game. Like when I was doing my 100% playthrough of Death Stranding and I was just doing those deliveries, like that was dude, I felt like a trucker. Just me listening to trucker radio.
Oh man, that's awesome.
The actual, like, once you get really into like just making the deliveries, and especially like when you're kind of free to make fucking 40 deliveries and you have all these tools that make doing 40 deliveries all at once like really fun. That shit feels so good. And you just like you sit back, you relax, you breathe, you either just enjoy the silence or you put on your podcast and your trucker radio and you just have a good time.
Yeah, Death Stranding's on. Oh yeah, and it's on the short list to go back to. I need to finish Ace Combat 7, which has just been like,
because you've never finished it, like, right?
No, I got to mission 15, because you know what the thing was, I would boot the game up and just replay the missions. Like I just like it. So I'm doing and the same thing's happening in Armored Core 6. Although I'm making I'm on mission like 24 or 25 of like 50 something. So I'm cooking there. But I just replay the missions a bunch because I need the money. I need the money to upgrade the parts. I want because right now I'm more interested in just making cool ACs. And going into missions and just doing wacky shit than like necessarily like advancing the game. But it's like, okay, I feel like I need to do a mission right now, and then I'll
well, you kind of know when it's time. Like I felt this way with any like open world game, similar, with Death Stranding and Tears of the Kingdom. I kind of knew when it was time to move on and like do the next story beat, even though I never really like had to. I could feel it in my bones when it was the time to just move the fuck on and continue the fucking story. So like I don't blame you with like a game like Ace Combat or Armored Core, where like you eventually do feel it when you're like, all right, well, let's get a move on then.
Yeah, it's good. Although it's been fun because I bought all the Top Gun DLC like a year ago when that came out. And it also came with a bunch of other fucking DLC planes that are all like dope as fuck and super strong. So I'm just using those on hard mode, but it's not me. I mean, you're able to take like 2 more hits, but like that's not why some of these missions are hard.
Right.
Like there's this mission in AC7. It's mission 6. It's called The Long Day. You have a 15-minute time limit to score 20,000 points, and each fucking thing is either worth 100 or 200 or 300, and dude, in an OP DLC plane, I had 20 seconds left on the clock when I finished this mission. It requires you to be locked in for 15 straight fucking minutes. And if you're playing with a normal ass fucking plane, you need to factor into your mission that you have to resupply at some point because you're not going to have enough regular missiles. Because I came in with pulse lasers, so I was able to like use those to like save my missile ammo for the back half of the mission, where like the big ticket planes come in that are worth like 500 points, the Grippins. God, you gotta play AC7, dude. You gotta play Skies Unknown. It's so fucking good, Miles. It's so good.
You know what? I gotta play anything at this point. Like it is really weird. Like when you start modding and it becomes this like day job where you're like, well, all right, I got this more left to do.
What's gonna happen when you finish the mod? Are you gonna play it?
No, because I don't need to play the mod. Like it's a rebalance. So like I kind of like, and it's specifically a numbers rebalance with the armor sets. So like, I've already thrown bombs at my feet 400 fucking times to make sure that the number values take. Like, I kind of know how the game is supposed to play and, like, how much damage I'm supposed to be taking with these armor reductions. So, like, I really don't need to play it like this. The next one that I want to do, I would like to play, but it's really ambitious. And, like, even with everything that I've learned, it's going to take, like, twice as long. but it's probably going to be worth it. Like, my main goal is to do, like, an armor rebalance and a weapon rebalance, and neither one is about, like, yeah, I gotta fix this game. Game's gotta be fixed. Tears of the Kingdom will simply never be balanced. It's too big for it, and some of the core systems are just too either overtuned or undertuned. It's just not gonna happen. And I wouldn't want it to be. But, like, I would like to do it in such a way where there's more interplay and more interesting decisions that could be made, rather than, like, a lot of what I do being, like, me saying, well, you know, I'd really like to do this. I see this vision in my head, so I'm gonna do it. And so, like, just, I'm making one that no one's gonna fucking like, because it involves any amount of durability whatsoever being adjusted so that sometimes it's lower, and no one's gonna like it because they're fucking babies. But I don't give a shit about these people. Fuck those guys. But then the armor rebalance, I think, is gonna be a little more popular. I think people are gonna like like what I'm doing with that. Because it's a little more extensive and it's a little more, like, creative. But even then, it's really fucking hard. And a lot of it's pre-planning. Like, a lot of it is just figuring out, like, what you need to do. File management is super important. So I don't know. Like, it's been fun, and it's kind of addicting too, because it's work that I want to do. It's work that I actually want to do, and, like, I like working. I just don't like working for people who aren't me. So, like, yeah. It does feel genuinely good to, like, get something done and to be like, yeah, like, I did it my way, and now I'm sitting on my throne made of skulls, and the Warriors of Light are coming. Like, feels good. Feels really fucking good.
It's
and to an extent, it does feel better than playing a game, like, when it's done. Like, so I think I'm just gonna have to kind of wait until it gets to a point where I really need a break.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, in the meantime, if you in the audience want to make mod requests to Myles that he can't do because he can't access
A and B files,
AI and B files, make sure to do that in our Discord. Link in the description. I am so tired and very hungry. I have leftover Domino's in the fridge. That's why I'm eating. Myles, before we go, what are you eating for dinner?
Bro, I kind of want a Panera golden or green goddess caprese sandwich. Have you ever had one?
No.
Bro, if you want a, like, nice, healthy, but excessively flavorful sandwich, like, I've never eaten something that, like, has no meat and has mostly vegetables that tastes so good. So yeah, that's
you can get it for the low price of $79.99.
You can get it for the low price of a battle pass from fucking NBA 2K 29,000.
You can get 1,000 My Player coins.
1,000 My Panera coins.
My Panera coin.